Chapter 1241. General Geshu. With a wave of his sleeve, Wang Chong quickened his pace and walked over. The two most famous great generals of Qixi and Longxi had finally met. Wang Chong had heard the name of the Big Dipper great general countless times, and had imagined his first meeting with Geshu Han, but he had never imagined that it would be under such circumstances. "Lord Wang, have a seat. I've been waiting for you for several days." A carefree smile appeared on Geshu Han's lips as he saw Wang Chong. Geshu Han extended a finger and pointed at the seat next to him. A Big Dipper soldier quickly brought over a small stool and placed it next to the table. After a few moments of silence, Wang Chong walked over and sat down across from Geshu Han. "Many thanks, my lord." Wang Chong was neither servile nor overbearing, his expression carefree and natural. Although this was their first meeting, there was no estrangement or awkwardness between the two. On the contrary, it felt like they were meeting old friends. "Lord Wang, I already know everything. This time, I'm here to send you off," Geshu Han straightforwardly said as he gazed at the youth before him. He rarely used honorifics to address others, and Wang Chong was much younger than him. The two of them had had their own conflicts in the past, but this time, Geshu Han was speaking from the bottom of his heart. The word "my lord" was enough to prove the status Wang Chong had in Geshu Han's heart. "My lord is too serious," Wang Chong calmly said. "Geshu rarely offers a toast to others, but Lord Wang, I offer you a toast." Geshu Han raised his wine cup to Wang Chong, a look of admiration on his face. After a few moments of silence, Wang Chong clinked his cup with Geshu Han and drained it in one gulp. All the people of the world can see General's achievements in the West. Regardless of the outcome of this expedition, General has brought forth the might of the Tang dynasty and the dignity of the people of the world. "General Wang, you've done what Geshu Han wanted to do his entire life, but was unable to do. Let me toast you the second cup." Geshu Han once more filled Wang Chong's cup, and his own as he raised it. If this scene on the official road were to spread out, it would surely shock the people of the world. Of the two imperial great generals of the Tang dynasty, one was a renowned veteran of the army, while the other was a rising star. Just their meeting was enough to shake the world, and now Geshu Han, as an illustrious veteran of the military, had actually personally poured wine for Wang Chong. This was enough to shock many people who had speculated that Wang Chong and Geshu Han didn't get along. Clang! The two cups clinked lightly in the air, and then Wang Chong and Geshu Han drained their cups in one gulp. "You flatter me, my lord." After drinking his second cup, Wang Chong put down his cup and said, "Wang Chong has never believed himself to have achieved anything. Wang Chong has never believed that he had any merit. As a soldier, I only did what I had to do, and this is not the work of Wang Chong alone, but the work of the entire Great Tang. Speaking of which, Wang Chong also has to thank Great General for the 3,000 soldiers of the Divine Martial Army. If not for the help of Great General and the other lords, Wang Chong would have found it very difficult to win this war." Wang Chong calmly said. His posture was ramrod straight, and there was no arrogance in his eyes, only endless calmness and composure. Geshu Han looked into Wang Chong's eyes, into those eyes that were as calm as autumn waters, and finally, he couldn't help but give a long sigh. "General Wang, Geshu Han was wrong. I misunderstood you in the past. The Tang dynasty truly is fortunate to have you. I will punish myself with this cup." Picking up the cup on the table, Geshu Han quickly drained it in one gulp, a complicated expression on his face. Geshu Han's initial attitude toward Wang Chong had not been like this. After the regional commander's incident, Geshu Han had even joined forces with the other generals to request the Holy Emperor to execute Wang Chong. Even when Wang Chong had established a fief in Wuxia, Geshu Han had been filled with enmity toward him. But Geshu Han had to admit that he had been too rash this time. This youth before him truly did have some sort of power that could change the fate of the entire Tang dynasty. He was definitely not the stubborn hedonistic scion he had imagined him to be. "What a pity, Wang Kuimpeng. If you had been born 10 some years earlier, perhaps we wouldn't have had such a misunderstanding. Perhaps we could have worked together to conquer Uzan and change the fate of the entire Tang dynasty." Geshu Han sighed inwardly. Strong winds test strong grass, blazing flames test true gold. Many times, one had to go through many trials to see a person's true character. But we still lost. As soon as Wang Chong said these words, the surroundings fell silent. Although Wang Chong had only said a few simple words, anyone who knew of Wang Chong's fate understood the meaning behind them. At this moment, even the surrounding Big Dipper army soldiers felt dejected. Countless bitter battles, countless lives, the persistence of life and death, only to have it all vanish at the very moment of success. Any soldier who had gone through life and death on the battlefield would be moved by Wang Chong's fate. Even Geshu Han's eyes had dimmed considerably. General Wang, there's no need to blame yourself. Right and wrong are twists and turns, and the people of the world will have their own opinions. No matter what the final result of this battle is, the people of the world will understand that General did his best. Geshu Han sternly said. These simple words carried an extraordinary weight. Given Geshu Han's status, these words undoubtedly represented the acknowledgement of the people of the world of Wang Chong. Many thanks, General. Wang Chong's loss is insignificant. With General's words, the sacrifice of those soldiers at Talas will not have been in vain. I thank my lord on their behalf. Wang Chong mentally sighed. He picked up the wine pot, poured himself a cup, bowed to Geshu Han, and then drained it in one gulp. The matter of Khorasan is no longer just General's concern, but that of the entire Tang dynasty and all its soldiers. General might still not know, but the Tang dynasty is beset by perils. Not just Khorasan, but Longxi, Baiting, and Yuzhou will soon follow in Khorasan's footsteps. Geshu Han sighed. Buzz! Wang Chong's heart trembled at Geshu Han's words, and he suddenly raised his head. Great General, what do you mean? General Wang, you still don't know, but since yesterday, the Imperial Court has dispatched army supervisors to Big Dipper City. From 100-man commanders to generals, almost every rank of the army has been overseen by the Imperial Court. Any order, even mine, has to pass through the supervision of the army supervisors before it can be passed on to the ordinary soldiers. I've already received word that Big Dipper City soldiers must be reduced by at least 50%. Even if I argue on the basis of reason, it must still be reduced by at least 30% within 2 months. Geshu Han bitterly smiled. What? A look of extreme shock appeared in Wang Chong's eyes. The Big Dipper army had never relied on numbers to obtain victory. Soldiers value quality, not quantity. On this point, Geshu Han was more thorough than anyone else. There were so many people in Longxi, but Geshu Han had only been able to gather 20,000 some soldiers. In the past, only Geshu Han had been able to contend against the entire Yusang Empire, with more than 20,000 soldiers, and stand firm for several decades. The Big Dipper army was already lacking in numbers. If they were to reduce their numbers by another 30%, how would they deal with the massive number of Uzan cavalry? That's not all. I've already received notice that the Imperial Court and the Uzan Empire have reached an agreement and signed a peace treaty. The 6 branches have also signed an agreement that forbids all soldiers in Big Dipper City from attacking the Uzan Empire on their own. Even if they are attacked and decide to launch a large-scale counterattack, they must first obtain the approval of the Imperial Court and the army supervisors. Geshu Han continued. These words were like a heavy bomb, sending great waves through Wang Chong's heart. He had never imagined that someone of Geshu Han's status would be swept up in this massive upheaval. General Wang, the world has already changed. If it were just Geshu Han, this matter would be insignificant, but I fear that this is only the beginning. From now on, the Tang dynasty will enter troubled times. Geshu Han gazed at Wang Chong and sighed. What happened in Khorasan and Big Dipper City is not an isolated incident. The Eastern and Western Turks, Goguryeo, Nanzhao. I'm afraid that the Imperial Court has already signed similar treaties with them. It's no longer just you and me. All the soldiers on the border of the Tang dynasty, from the Imperial Court to the border, are feeling insecure. But what I'm most worried about is the Tang dynasty. Since ancient times, I've never heard of a dynasty or empire capable of protecting itself without a powerful army. The Tang dynasty is crippling its own martial arts. As Wang Chong gazed at Geshu Han, His expression turned extremely grave. He had never known that so many things had happened in such a short period of time. This is an unprecedented storm. Geshu Han's words determined the course of the matter. General Wang, whether it's me, Gao Xianji, Lord Wang of the capital, or even the imprisoned Fomin Linta, those generals who worked together to create the glorious history of the Tang dynasty are all in their 40s, and many of them are already in their 50s. Of all the great generals of the Tang dynasty, you are the only one in your 20s. I do not know how long this storm will last or how great its effects will be, nor do I know how many people will be able to endure it. I only hope that no matter what happens, you will not be discouraged. Because you are the hope of the entire Tang dynasty. Geshu Han's words were solemn and filled with hope. The empire was like a pool of stagnant water that had not stirred for many years. If the empire wanted glory, if it wanted to pass on its glory and culture, if it wanted to reach even greater heights of glory, it needed a new flame. It would not be an ordinary imperial great general like himself, but a flame that possessed formidable martial strength, formidable willpower, and a sharpness like a saber or sword that could change the entire Tang dynasty, and even the world. Not so long ago, Geshu Han had believed that this sort of flame could not exist. This was because this was not something an ordinary person could accomplish. A normal person who could reach the level of imperial great generals like him, and Gao Xianji was already a genius, and it was almost impossible to surpass them. Chapter 1242. According to the military laws of the Tang dynasty, a commander could not leave the camp without orders. Given Geshu Han's status as the Big Dipper Great General, he would immediately be charged with a heavy crime. This was also the reason he had taken such a huge risk to meet Wang Chong on the official road and send off Wang Chong. In Wang Chong, Geshu Han saw hope that he had never seen before. Whoosh! A gust of wind blew between Wang Chong and Geshu Han, causing their robes to flap in the wind. All was silent. Wang Chong and Geshu Han looked at each other, neither of them speaking. Wang Chong had never imagined that Geshu Han would regard him with such importance. As he gazed at those bright eyes, countless thoughts flitted through Wang Chong's mind. After a long while, Wang Chong finally spoke, his voice deafening. Dark clouds cannot obscure the sky, and even the greatest snowstorm will eventually disperse. Great General, I do not know what has happened in the imperial court, nor do I know why it has become like this. But I know that no matter how great the storm, there will come a day when the sun will once more shine over everyone's heads. What great general looks forward to, what I look forward to, what everyone looks forward to, will come one day, and it won't be too long. At that moment, Wang Chong was like a sword that had been sheathed for a long time, finally revealing its true sharpness. Even the radiance of the sun would lose its splendor in that instant. Geshu Han stared at the blazing light in Wang Chong's eyes, his heart deeply shaken. Even the Big Dipper army soldiers standing around, shouldering the responsibility of protecting Geshu Han, were awed by Wang Chong's spirit and demeanor, their faces filled with shock. Wang Chong was famous throughout the world for his peerless martial arts and military achievements, as well as his astonishing military strategies. But at this moment, the stubborn will, tenacious spirit, and inextinguishable fighting spirit that he revealed were even more dazzling than his military achievements. Ha ha ha. All right. Geshu Han looked at Wang Chong and suddenly burst into laughter. General Wang, I really didn't misjudge you. With your words, I no longer have any regrets. With you in the Tang dynasty, it is the fortune of the Central Plains and the fortune of the world. Geshu would always remember today's words, and he hoped that General Wang would never forget them. On this trip to the capital, no matter what setbacks we encounter, I hope that General will not give up. As long as General Wang remembers today's words, Geshu Han and all the other generals will always stand behind General. Clang! In midair, the cups clinked against each other, and the wine spilled out. Geshu Han laughed heartily as he left. After downing the last cup of wine, Geshu Han left with a dozen elite Big Dipper warriors. When he had come, his face had been fraught with worry, but when he left, he was extremely carefree, his heart brimming with joy. Great General, take care. Wang Chong gazed at Geshu Han's departing figure, and the dust stirred up by the hooves of his horse. After a long while, he finally turned around and boarded his carriage. Wang Chong, just now that was... On the carriage, Su Yiqin looked at Wang Chong with concern. An old friend. He has already left. After saying these words, Wang Chong closed his eyes and became motionless. Hiya! With the flick of a whip, the carriage began to move, and the group quickly set off on the road to the capital. The group set off once more, traveling along the Silk Road to the capital. This time, they encountered no more obstacles. 10 some days later, after passing through lofty mountains and precipitous ridges, the group finally left the borders of Longxi and reached the most dazzling capital of the Tang dynasty. Boom! By the time Wang Chong's carriage reached the capital, a sea of people had gathered outside the western gate. Countless people had rushed out of the city and gathered near the western gate. He's here, he's here. It's the king of foreign lands. Look. Wang Chong. Wang Chong. Before the carriage could even get close, cheers could be heard in the distance. The tens of thousands of people seemed to be attracted by a tide, all of them excitedly surging toward Wang Chong's carriage. He's back. The young marquis is finally back. Everyone hurry and see. Everyone's eyes were brimming with enthusiasm as they excitedly rushed over to get close to the carriage. My lord, we've arrived. A voice came from outside the carriage. However, the inside of the carriage was completely silent. Not a single sound could be heard. This was a stark contrast to the liveliness and clamor outside the carriage. Wang Chong's eyes were closed, his back leaning against the carriage. He didn't need to walk out to hear the roaring cheers. There was bound to be a sea of people jostling each other. Wang Chong felt no joy at this moment. Everyone knew that he had triumphantly returned from Khorasan, but no one knew that he had been publicly promoted but secretly demoted. The common people would never know what was happening in the imperial court, nor would they know about the politics in the documents. While they were all cheering, no one knew that the world had changed. Wang Chong mentally sighed, suddenly feeling rather sorrowful. The sky will clear after the rain. One day, the ministers of the imperial court will understand your intentions. I am confident that one day, all of this will pass. Su Yiqin, dressed in a white dress, sat next to Wang Chong and softly comforted him. She saw the sorrowful look on Wang Chong's face, and she couldn't help but feel a little sad. Wang Chong silently nodded. There was a sea of people outside the city, many of them surging toward Wang Chong's carriage, but they were unable to cross the wall formed by the imperial court soldiers. Out of the way! All of you, out of the way! Everyone retreat! Pass on my order! Anyone who dares to disobey orders and cross the line will be arrested by the city guard and thrown into prison. At the very front of the crowd, officials from the Ministry of Rights led officials from the Ministry of Revenue, the Ministry of Appointments, the City Defense Division, and the Supreme Court, leading thousands of soldiers to block the surging tide of people. All of them looked like they were facing a great enemy. That ordinary-looking carriage was like a thorn in the flesh in everyone's eyes. They had long since received King Qi's orders for Wang Chong's return to the capital. No matter what, they had to separate Wang Chong from the common people of the city, minimizing the impact of Wang Chong's return. They could not allow him to use this incident to raise his prestige and status in the hearts of the common people. The entire Wang clan was already sufficiently illustrious. They could not allow another Duke Jiu to appear. What a headache! King Qi's orders cannot be defied. Even if we have to capture all the common people in the city, we cannot allow the Wang clan to do as they wish. Seeing the approaching carriage, the eyes of the leading official from the Bureau of Rights flashed with light. Wang Chong's achievements in the West were truly greater than the heavens. His prestige in the court was as high as the noon sun. It would be extremely unwise to openly oppose him. Fortunately, King Qi's advisors had already thought things through. As long as they used the pretext of maintaining order and preventing the common people from gathering and trampling, they could openly protect Wang Chong's party, minimizing the impact of Wang Chong's return to the capital. Afterwards, they could even claim that Wang Chong was arrogant and proud of his achievements, ordering the army to prevent the common people from approaching. As long as they spread this rumor, they could greatly erase Wang Chong's image and achievements. As for the truth, who among the common people would know? All of you heed my order. Take some men with you to protect him. Remember, no matter what, do not let Wang Chong get off the carriage. The leading official from the Bureau of Rights pointed at 2 city guard experts at his side. These were all experts that King Qi had assigned to the city guard. All of them were loyal and reliable. Yes, the rest of you follow me. The eyes of the 2 city guard experts flashed. Waving their arms, they mounted their horses and rode forward. Marquis, it's the city guard. While Wang Chong was seated in the carriage, Su Qi's voice suddenly came from outside. The common people of the capital are all looking forward to Marquis's return. Too many people have come out to welcome him, and the city guard is afraid of causing a stampede. They hope that Marquis can enter the city as quickly as possible to avoid chaos. In the carriage, Wang Chong was leaning against the wall, his face expressionless as he gave a soft grunt of affirmation. On the side, Su Yiqin instantly frowned. I didn't think that they would be so impatient. Su Yiqin softly sighed. After spending so much time in the capital, she had been influenced by what she had seen and heard. And Su Yiqin was well aware of all the scheming and deceit of the capital's imperial court. Just by looking at the situation in front of her, she already understood what was going on. They've really found a good excuse. Su Yiqin rarely got angry, but at this moment, she couldn't help but show a hint of anger on her face. The 2 of them had risked their lives outside, and now that they had returned to the capital, the people of the imperial court were using this method to deal with them. Let them do what they want. A familiar voice came from next to her ear, as Wang Chong took Su Yiqin's hand and softly comforted her. A plume of dust can't obscure the sun, and a single mantis can't change the universe. The major events of history and the world can't be changed by 1 or 2 people, or a small group of people. No matter who they are, or what they want to do, they won't succeed. Feeling the warmth from her hand and the light in his eyes, Su Yiqin was startled. All of a sudden, all of her emotions calmed down, and a blush appeared on her face as she softly nodded. As the carriage continued to advance, the cheers grew louder and louder, shaking the heavens. On the other side, seeing that the door of the carriage was tightly shut, and that Wang Chong had listened to his advice and not left the carriage, the leading official from the Bureau of Rights and the people around him breathed a long sigh of relief. Given Wang Chong's current reputation, if he wanted to obtain scholarly honors and win the hearts of the people, he only needed to show his face in front of the people of the capital on this triumphant return. This was what King Qi and the others feared the most. But as long as Wang Chong did not leave the carriage, the effects of this matter would be kept to a minimum. No matter what, we finally succeeded. The Wang clan will never use this matter to expand its prestige. Chapter 1243. While the people of the Ministry of Rights were heaving a long sigh of relief, in another direction, the crowd was growing more and more excited. Amidst the dense crowd, an adult lifted his child up high and propped him on his shoulder. Look, son, that's the role model you should learn from. When you grow up, you must become a hero like that as well. The father looked at the distant carriage with an excited expression. Daddy, Daddy, I see it, I see it. The 3 or 4 years old child propped on his father's shoulder said in a childish voice, his expression also very excited. When the young voice reached the carriage, the calm Wang Chong, whose eyes were closed all this time, suddenly felt a jolt in his heart, and a trace of emotion appeared on his face. Get out of the way. All of you get back. Perhaps it was because they were too excited, but the group of people followed the surging tide and pushed forward, not noticing that they had unknowingly pushed too far forward and squeezed into the soldiers on guard. In an instant, the soldiers in charge of guarding the front immediately fiercely turned around and vigorously pushed the surrounding crowd. The father and son were also among the soldiers. The father lost his balance and fell backward. The 3 or 4 years old son in his arms also fell from his shoulder, crying out in fright. Seeing that the child was about to fall, in the time it took for a spark to fly off a flint, boom! A majestic force suddenly shot out like lightning, abruptly catching the falling child. Wang. This scene was too sudden. Sensing the direction of the burst of energy, the crowd instantly fell silent. Even the soldiers who were forcefully pushing against the crowd trembled and abruptly stopped. Oh no! Almost at the same time, the expressions of the officials of the Ministry of Rites in the distance suddenly changed. All of them suddenly had an extremely bad feeling in their hearts. Hurry! The leading official of the Ministry of Rites anxiously shouted, and suddenly let out a beast-like roar. Beside him, several experts of the city guard received the order and immediately charged toward the source of the disturbance. Their reactions were already very fast, but things were still developing in the direction they feared the most. Bang! Under the gazes of countless people, the two wooden doors of the plain-looking carriage suddenly opened, and a young and slender figure walked out of the carriage. At that moment, the entire city gate fell into a deathly silence. King of Foreign Lands! The King of Foreign Lands! Outside the city gate, within the dense crowd, a man suddenly shouted in excitement. In an instant, all the people near the city gate became excited and let out earth-shattering cheers. His voice was louder than it had ever been. For the common people of the capital, this was their first time seeing Wang Chong. In their eyes, the young figure standing at the door of the carriage was taller than a mountain, more dazzling than the sun and moon. At that moment, Wang Chong was the most eye-catching existence in the entire world. It's over. Seeing Wang Chong standing at the door of the carriage, the leading official from the Ministry of Rites felt his heart sink. He had never imagined that just as Wang Chong was about to smoothly enter the city, he would end up failing on the verge of success, ruined by some idiots of the city guard over a pair of father and son. Gallop! Dust churned on the road outside the city gate. Upon seeing Wang Chong step out of the carriage, several city guard experts galloped over and stood in front of Wang Chong. My lord! These people wanted to speak up and stop Wang Chong, but Wang Chong turned his head and glared at them, causing their hearts to tremble and their mouths to tremble. The duty of the city guard was to maintain the stability and safety of the capital. There were all sorts of people in the capital, and they had seen countless high officials and nobles, but none of them could compare to the look in Wang Chong's eyes. With just a glance, everyone's hearts were filled with words, and they couldn't say a single word. Withdraw! An indifferent voice resounded in their ears, neither loud nor soft. These people subconsciously wanted to retort, but before they could speak, the city guard experts suddenly realized that their bodies seemed to be under someone's control, causing them to involuntarily retreat. Yes, my lord. A familiar voice resounded in their ears, and to the shock of the city guard experts, this was their own voice. Their voices were filled with respect, even more so than when they spoke to their superiors. For a moment, all the city guard experts were stunned. What a terrifying pressure! The experts of the city guard were drenched in cold sweat, and even their backs were drenched in sweat. In all their years of service in the city guard, they had never seen anyone exude such an intense pressure. In an instant, the group of people were like antelopes that had encountered a lion. Before they could think too much, their bodies instinctively took measures to protect themselves. But Wang Chong ignored them. With a wave of his robe, he stepped down from the carriage and began to walk toward the father and son. Bzzz. In a flash of light, the child that had been on the verge of falling to the ground landed in Wang Chong's arms. In the distance, the father crawled up from the ground. At this sight, not only was he not worried, he was pleasantly surprised. Wonderful! He had never imagined that a simple fall would allow his child to meet the greatest legend of the empire. The crowd was in an uproar, countless people craning their necks to look expectantly at the king of foreign lands and the child in his arms. At this moment, Wang Chong paid no attention to any of this. His eyes were completely focused on the 3- or 4-year-old child in his arms. But the child was not afraid. He only stared at Wang Chong, his eyes pure and curious. This is for you. Wang Chong took out a small dagger and placed it in the child's hand. It doesn't matter if you understand or not. Remember, no matter when, never give up on your ideals. Never give up on hope. After placing the child in the father's hands, Wang Chong quickly turned around and entered the carriage. Rumble! The carriage started moving, and with the sound of rolling wheels, it sped towards the tall city gate. Behind him, the sea of people seemed to have woken up from a dream and cheered along with him. King of foreign lands! King of foreign lands! King of foreign lands! The cheers of the crowd were louder and louder than any other time. Even the walls of the capital seemed to tremble in response to this earth-shattering roar. The people of the capital who had come to welcome the King of foreign lands were in an extremely high mood. In everyone's impression, there was nothing more iconic than the scene that had just taken place. The greatest hero of the empire, the legendary war god, who had conquered and destroyed an army of 1 million Arabs, and the most ordinary and weak child of the Tang dynasty. This scene had been deeply imprinted into the minds of the crowd, and they would not be able to forget it for a very long time. Looking at the scene before them, and hearing the deafening cheers, the expressions of the officials from the Ministry of Rights in the surroundings became extremely unsightly. Putting aside the cheering crowd outside the city, Wang Chong, Su Qi, Chen Bin, and the others had long ago passed through the city gates and entered the capital. Unlike the sea of people outside, it was much quieter behind the city gates. In the distance, several hundred meters away, carriages were parked on the side of the road. Figures stood in front of these carriages with their hands at their sides, apparently waiting for a very long time. Perhaps not every one of these figures possessed a powerful cultivation base, but without exception, all of them exuded a strong aura of power. Some of them exuded the prestige of an official that was even stronger than Wang Chong's. Only the civil and military officials of the Tang dynasty could possess such powerful auras. Rumble! The carriage came to a halt when it was still several dozen paces from the ministers. Zhang Kei's carriage came to a halt. Marquis, we can't go any further. Zhang Kei's voice suddenly came from outside the carriage. His voice trembled slightly as he swallowed hard. Zhang Kei had followed Wang Chong through many battles and seen many storms, but even he couldn't help but pale at the sight of these figures, his voice tinged with nervousness. Young Marquis, this old man has been waiting for a long time. At almost the same time, an elderly and vigorous voice came from up ahead. Seated in the carriage, Wang Chong's brow creased, but he quickly returned to normal. Qi-Qin, I'm going down to see them. You can return to the residence in a little while. Wang Chong turned his head to Su Yiqin and gently said, Su Yiqin looked in the direction of the carriage and nodded, a kind and understanding look on her face. Wang Chong's return to the capital had stirred up the various factions. The soldiers on the front lines had sacrificed so much, but all of it had been reduced to nothing in a single night. Wang Chong needed an explanation and an answer. From the moment the two of them arrived at the capital, an invisible storm had begun to sweep through the capital, one that was certain to shake the empire. Wang Chong had told her to leave because he didn't want to implicate her. And in Su Yiqin's view, Wang Chong had far too many things that required his attention, and she did not want Wang Chong to be distracted or implicated. Go. I'll come find you when the time comes. Creak. The door to the carriage opened, and the soft creak was particularly loud and grating. Wang Chong stepped out of the carriage and quickly landed on the ground. All was quiet outside the carriage. Wang Chong turned his head and immediately saw that hundreds of carriages were parked in front of the carriage. The Yong River was barricaded, and the carriages were decorated with the emblems of the nobles and illustrious clans of the capital. Countless figures stood in front of these carriages. Some had white hair, some were young and vigorous, some were dressed in the robes of an official, some were dressed in casual clothes, some were smiling at Wang Chong like a spring breeze, and some were sneering, their expressions strange and sinister. This tiny city gate had attracted countless nobles and officials, their friends in the open and in the shadows. The moment Wang Chong returned to the capital, countless people, each with their own ulterior motives, had gathered here. In the blink of an eye, Wang Chong took in all of this, and a glimmer of light flashed through his eyes before quickly returning to normal. Ha ha ha, boy Wang Chong, this old man has been waiting for you for a long time. Chapter 1244. Old ancestor, wait a moment. Your body cannot compare to before. Let us support you. The old man had barely begun to move when the two youths behind him rushed forward, their faces beaded with sweat. They wanted to support the old man, but they were flung aside. Ha ha ha, so what if my body is not good? Today, the hero of my Tang dynasty is returning in triumph. Even if this old man has to cripple his legs, I will stand here and wait for his return. The old man heartily laughed, his beard trembling as he laughed like a child. At the sight of this figure, Wang Chong's heart warmed, the thick ice in his heart melting. He immediately strode forward to welcome the old man. Old Senior Duan, your words are too flattering for this junior. Let me support you. Wang Chong shot forward to support the old man. The only person who could command such respect from Wang Chong was the staunch and incorruptible imperial censor Duan Chao, who could not tolerate even a grain of sand in his eyes. In the War of the Southwest, Wang Chong had returned victorious. Because Wang Chong was not a member of the army, many people had used this point to attack Wang Chong, with Duan Qian of the Duan clan leading the charge. But at this time, no one had expected the old imperial censor Duan Chao to personally appear and place righteousness before family, slapping Duan Qian and paving the way for Wang Chong to finally be made the young marquis. Right was right, wrong was wrong. Even if a member of his own family had done something wrong, the old imperial censor would not show the slightest mercy. This was also why Wang Chong deeply respected and admired him. On his return to the capital, Wang Chong had not expected the old imperial censor Duan Chao to personally welcome him at the city gate. Ha ha ha, kid. Wang Chong, you're favoring one and discriminating against the other. I'm not any younger than old man Duan. Come, help me up. At this moment, another old voice came from behind. Wang Chong turned his head and saw another white-bearded old man striding over from behind. Senior Deng. Wang Chong laughed bitterly. He took a step forward and held Duan Chao and the old censor Deng Chang at the same time. Deng Chang's age was not lower than Duan Chao's. Both of them were old, and they were both old ministers of the previous dynasty. They were upright and outspoken, and they had great prestige in the court. Moreover, they had also supported Wang Chong. Wang Chong respected both of them very much. You two old men, you're not young anymore, yet you're still torturing the younger generation like this. This child risked his life on this Western expedition and almost died outside. Do you still have the heart to torment him like this? While Wang Chong was feeling rather embarrassed by the two old censors, Imperial Censor Lu Ji looked at the two and shook his head. A few moments later, 3 of the illustrious imperial censors of the Tang dynasty had gathered together. Seeing the old censor Lu Ji appear, the 2 old censors, Duan Chao and Deng Chang, put away their smiles and became much more serious. Wang Chong, we old men were just teasing you just now. In the Battle of Talas, you did not tarnish the spirit and prestige of my Tang dynasty. No matter what other people think of you, I, old Duan Chao, will remember you. For my Tang dynasty to have a child like you is the proudest thing for us old men. This old man has already said that you, Wang Chong, will be the eternal example of my Duan clan. If there is any unfilial descendant who is incited by a rascal to make an enemy of you, I, Duan Chao, will expel him. Imperial censor Duan Chao finally put away his smile and sternly said, although he was saying these words in front of Wang Chong, and to Wang Chong, he was fiercely glaring at the group of people behind him. Correct. At almost the same time, Imperial censor Deng Chang vigorously nodded his head. Merit must be rewarded and mistakes must be punished. The Tang dynasty will never forget those who have rendered meritorious service to the country. No matter what other people think of you, I, Deng Chang, will always support you, just like old man Duan. Young man, never be discouraged. As the old censor spoke, he patted Wang Chong on the shoulder. Haha, count me in as well. The old censor Lu Ji stroked his beard and said with a smile. Wang Chong looked at the 3 white-haired men, his heart bursting with emotion. At this moment, he suddenly understood why they had appeared here. 3 seniors, thank you, Wang Chong said sincerely. Wang Chong does not feel that he has made any meritorious service. But Wang Chong will always remember what the 3 seniors have said today. No matter what, I will never be discouraged, nor will I give up hope. Haha, good. It's enough for you to say these words today. It was not in vain for us three old men to embarrass ourselves by flaunting our seniority here at the city gates. In front of the many civil and military officials, the three old censors stroked their beards, their expressions filled with gratification. Before the Holy Emperor, when the late emperor was still around, the three old censors represented the noblest qualities in the world: integrity, fearlessness, and justice. In that turbulent era, the three old men straightened their backs and used their bodies to prop up the sky of the Tang dynasty and the spirit of the people of the Tang dynasty. Even today, they still influence generations of people. With their harsh gazes, there was almost no one in the world that could satisfy them. There was no one in the past, and now, there was only one person, Wang Chong. It was precisely because of this that the three of them could not tolerate anyone harming Wang Chong. The three of them had put on an act in front of so many people, all for the sake of protecting Wang Chong. Hearing the words of the three old censors, many people's faces turned extremely ugly. Three old censors, although I do not object to you forcefully occupying the young marquis, look behind us. Today is a rare day for the young marquis to return. Almost all the high officials and nobles of the capital have come to welcome him. You don't want them to be unable to even deliver the gifts in their hands, do you? At this moment, a clear voice came from the rear, attracting everyone's attention. Wang Chong turned in the direction of the voice and saw a refined and scholarly elder dressed in an azure robe. He had a brush in one hand and a piece of paper in the other. As he walked toward the group, he began to rapidly write something with his brush. This elder did not appear to be older than Duan Chao, Deng Chong, or Lu Ji, but he was at least 70 years old. Wang Chong did not believe that he had seen him before, but from his clothes, demeanor, and the brush in his hand, Wang Chong quickly thought of someone. Grand Scribe Yan Wenzhang. The Yan clan had been in charge of writing the history books for every dynasty, and no matter how the dynasty changed, this position was always hereditary. The Yan clan rarely produced any high-ranking officials, but there were very few people more qualified than them for the position of Grand Scribe and the writing of history books. This was why every dynasty would swiftly seek out the Yan clan and have them take charge of the work of Grand Scribe. Brat Yan, even if I take him for myself today, what can you do about it? The dignified Grand Scribe Yan Wenzhang, who wielded an iron brush and a red calligraphy brush, was feared by all the civil and military officials in the imperial court. A scholar did not need to use a sword to kill, but to Duan Chao, Deng Chong, and Lu Ji, he was merely a Yan brat. Even so, the three of them still moved to the side. Their mission had been accomplished, so there was no need to stop the others. Young Marquis, Yan Wenzhang walked out from the rear, his eyes flashing as he stared at Wang Chong. Although this old man has always opposed war, you truly have made a great contribution this time. Be at ease. I will definitely record your achievements in the annals of history and have them be passed down for generations to come. Cries of surprise came from the crowd at Yan Wenzhang's words. To receive such praise from the Grand Scribe and have it recorded in the annals of history was something that countless officials and generals dreamed of. Yan Wenzhang's words alone were enough for Wang Chong to be proud. All the sacrifices he had made on the Western expedition had not been in vain. Sir Yan, there is one thing that you might be mistaken about. Wang Chong looked at Yan Wenzhang and suddenly said something that no one had expected. Wang Chong's expedition to Talas, his battle with the Arabs, his assault on Khorasan, and his threat to the Arab capital of Baghdad was never for the sake of leaving his name in the annals of history, nor was it for the glory of his alchemy. Buzz! Grand Scribe Yan Wenzhang was dumbfounded by Wang Chong's words, and the crowd fell deathly still. Even Duan Chao, Deng Chong, and Lu Ji were dumbfounded. The dense crowd of officials, generals, and nobles in front of the carriage were also silent, none of them able to speak. No matter how powerful a general was, he was no match for a civil official's pen or a civil official's mouth. Generals went on expeditions to the borders and risked their lives for the sake of fame, wealth, and service to the country. What they hoped for the most was to leave their name in the annals of alchemy and be respected by their descendants. This had already surpassed any merit. This was the reason why the Grand Scribe had such a special status, and was so respected by all the officials. But for Wang Chong to say that he didn't care at all in front of all these officials left them dumbfounded. Young Marquis, forgive this old man for speaking out of turn, but what is the young Marquis's goal? Yan Wenzhong sternly said, a hint of curiosity in his eyes. To do my utmost and to have a clear conscience. Wang Chong indifferently said, only saying a few words. Grand Scribe Yan Wenzhong was stunned, his brows slightly creasing as a pensive look appeared in his eyes. Wang Chong's simple words instantly plunged the crowd into silence, and even Deng Chong seemed to be thinking. Wang Chong said nothing, only he knew his own ambitions. Whether it was leaving his name in the annals of history, or becoming a high official, he had never sought these things. He was keenly aware of the dangers this world was facing. After living 2 lives, Wang Chong had only done his utmost and never gave up. This was the case in both the Nanjiao War and the Battle of Talas. Chapter 1245. Doing one's best and having a clear conscience. Wang brat, this old man underestimated you in the past. Yan Wenzhong's eyes glimmered as he gazed at the young man. If you really can do as you say, unwavering in worldly affairs and unconcerned with fame, this old man will truly admire you. Wang Chong only faintly smiled and said nothing. There were some things that he disdained to explain, nor did he need to explain. Haha. What is everyone standing around for? It's rare for the young Marquis to return, and this is the first prince of my Tang dynasty with a different surname. We can't let the old imperial censors and the Grand Scribe monopolize all the glory. Come, take out my gift. As the Grand Scribe and Wang Chong were speaking, someone in the distance loudly called out, and a group of people immediately surged forward. Young Marquis, this is a little something I've prepared. In the Battle of Khorasan, Marquis greatly increased the prestige of our Tang dynasty. I couldn't think of anything to give, so I had my family bring some local specialties. I hope that Marquis will like them. The first to step forward was the beacon general Jiang Yunrang. In the Battle of Talas, the imperial court had been fiercely debating whether or not to send reinforcements to Wang Chong. Jiang Yunrang was a member of Wang Chong's military branch, and he was one of Wang Chong's staunchest supporters. No one was happier than Jiang Yunrang to see Wang Chong return. Haha, young Marquis, this one is Assistant Minister of War Chao Qianzong. I hope that Marquis will accept this humble gift. Chao Qianzong also stepped forward, his face brimming with joy. With these two leading the way, the crowd rushed forward with gifts and surrounded Wang Chong. Young Marquis, this one is from the Wei clan of the capital. We once sent soldiers to assist Milord in his campaign against Nanjiao, so we have specially offered a great gift to Milord. The Zhang clan of the capital has specially offered a visiting card and a great gift to congratulate Milord on his triumphant return. The Duke Chao residence has sent a great gift to congratulate Milord on his promotion. The Duke Gore residence has sent a great gift. The Tan public house sends a big gift. The Prince of De sends a gift to congratulate the young man on his victory. Prince Shou's residence sends a gift to congratulate the young man on his victory. Minister of the Left's servant Shi Fangming pays respects to the young Marquis, and has come to deliver a congratulatory gift. Silver Green Bright Minister Wei Wujing congratulates the youth on his victory, and presents a congratulatory gift. Crown Prince Zhan Shi Huang Qiwei has sent a congratulatory gift. In a flash, countless voices rang out in Wang Chong's ears. Wang Chong's return to the capital had alarmed countless people. Almost all the influential figures in the capital had sent people, and even Crown Prince Zhan Shi had sent people. For a moment, the atmosphere was extremely lively. The Crown Prince's junior guardian Wang Zhongxi has sent a congratulatory gift. All of a sudden, a sonorous and powerful voice rang out clearly in everyone's ears from within the bustling crowd. With just one sentence, the originally noisy crowd suddenly quietened down. Even Wang Chong froze as he turned in the direction of the voice. The Crown Prince's junior guardian Wang Zhongxi had an even more illustrious name. War God of the Tang dynasty. Some years ago, there was no name more illustrious than this name in the world. In the entire world, there was no name that could shake the surrounding kingdoms more than this name. Wang Chong had not expected that the Crown Prince's junior guardian Wang Zhongxi, whom he had never met before, would personally send a congratulatory gift to him on his return to the capital. The crowd suddenly fell silent. Following the source of the voice, Wang Chong immediately saw the speaker. He was dressed in an azure robe and had an unremarkable appearance. Mixed in with the crowd, almost no one paid him any attention. But his ramrod straight figure, determined eyes, and courageous demeanor deeply revealed the strong imprint of his master. Many thanks. Wang Chong parted the crowd, walked over, and bowed in a manner that was neither servile nor overbearing. Please report to Lord Wang on my behalf that I will accept his gift. In the future, Wang Chong will definitely pay him a visit to express my gratitude. Marquis need not be so courteous. My lord has said that Marquis has done what he failed to do, and he greatly admires Marquis. From now on, Marquis is the true war god of the Tang dynasty. We are all officials of the same court and work together. As long as we can strengthen the Central Plains and bring prosperity to the Tang dynasty, what difference does it make whether we meet or not? The azure-robed servant said loudly. As soon as he finished speaking, Wang Chong couldn't help but feel deep veneration. Although he had never seen the most legendary existence of the Tang dynasty more than a decade ago, just from this servant and the words he had entrusted someone to say, he could tell what kind of person the war god of the Tang dynasty was. His Highness King Qi congratulates the youth on his victory and specially presents a great gift. Right at this moment, a resounding voice rang out. It was incomparably loud and clear, breaking the silence. In an instant, everyone turned their heads to look in the direction of the voice. The originally lively atmosphere immediately became somewhat strange when the two words King Qi appeared. King Qi and the King of Song and the Wang clan were natural enemies, and the two sides had fought countless rounds in the imperial court. This sort of conflict was invisible, but it was far more dangerous than any sword or saber. No one had expected Wang Chong to send someone on his triumphant return from Khorasan. At this moment, the only person who remained calm and unmoved was Wang Chong. Ever since he had announced the imperial decree in Khorasan that he had been demoted, and then he had learned in Qixi that the Tang dynasty had retreated, everything he had worked so hard to build up in Khorasan had gone up in smoke. There was no longer any news that could shake him. Wang Chong had already mentally prepared himself for anything. With a calm expression, Wang Chong turned his head in the direction of the voice. Whoosh! At the densest part of the crowd, a figure with a rather feminine temperament pushed through the crowd and walked out. Young Marquis, congratulations. There is no one in the world who doesn't know of your great achievements in the Western expedition. When the young Marquis arrived at the capital, almost all the civil and military officials of the court knew of it, and all of them sent people to congratulate and welcome you. The young Marquis is in high spirits and on the verge of being made king, truly worthy of celebration. Most of the people present had never seen this effeminate minor official before. Moreover, in front of so many senior and important officials, this effeminate minor official did not show any stage fright. Not only did he not show any weakness, there was even a hint of wildness between his brows. But this official's words left everyone dumbfounded. No one had expected King Qi to be so gentle this time. If you have anything else to say it all at once. Wang Chong's face was calm and unmoved. He. The effeminate official gave a strange laugh and lowered his body as he spoke in an eccentric tone. As expected, I can't hide it from my lord. His Highness King Qi truly did entrust this lowly one with a message. His Highness said that a man cannot be happy for 1,000 days. A flower cannot bloom for 100 days. The higher one climbs, the harder one falls. With these last words, the effeminate official slowly raised his head and gazed at Wang Chong, a strange smile on his face. Impudent! The crowd instantly paled at these words. Wang Chong had made great contributions in the Western expedition, and his return to the capital was truly the focus of attention. Even those who normally had a bad opinion of Wang Chong, like Yan Wenzhong, would restrain themselves. But this minor official was relying on King Qi's authority to act like a fox exploiting the tiger's might before Wang Chong. Ha! The effeminate official did not restrain himself in the slightest when he heard this rebuke. On the contrary, he began to laugh. On his return to the capital, Wang Chong had been ordered by King Qi to say these words in front of all the officials precisely for this effect. No matter how illustrious Wang Chong was right now, there would be a day when he would fall. In short, he could not let Wang Chong and the Wang clan have an easy time. The surroundings were deathly silent, and all of the civil and military officials had uneasy expressions on their faces. One was an imperial prince of the Tang dynasty, while the other was the newly conferred king of foreign lands by the Tang dynasty. This was especially true considering that Wang Chong had just been stripped of his military authority and transferred back to the interior. He had returned with a belly full of rage. Everyone was worried that Wang Chong would not be able to restrain himself and would immediately clash with King Qi. Then thank King Qi in my stead. As the tense atmosphere was like an erupting volcano, Wang Chong's indifferent voice resounded in everyone's ears. His voice was neither loud nor soft, flat and emotionless. Everyone was dumbfounded by these calm words, and even the effeminate official was dumbfounded. He had apparently not expected Wang Chong to be so calm, but a moment later, he realized that he had been wrong. In addition, help me bring these same words to His Highness King Qi as well. Buzz! The minor official, who had been proud of himself, suddenly changed his expression. His face immediately became extremely ugly. He had not expected that Wang Chong would use the spear of a sun to attack a sun's shield, returning the words he had just said back to him. But he could not act up, because he had said those words in the first place. Humph! The effeminate official coldly snorted at Wang Chong's words. Unable to stay any longer, he swept his sleeves and left. This child is worthy of being taught. Nearby, Duan Chao, Deng Chong, and Lu Ji had been watching from the sidelines. They had not spoken for Wang Chong, nor had they interfered to stop the minor official. Seeing how Wang Chong handled matters, they couldn't help but give a slight nod. With Wang Chong's return, an invisible storm was brewing. Countless factions in the capital had heard of this news, and just for this tiny city gate, countless people from all sorts of sects and clans had come to gather. Some of these people had sincerely come to congratulate Wang Chong, while others, like King Qi, had used the excuse of welcoming him to conceal ill intentions and deliberately cause trouble. And all of this was only the tip of this storm. If Wang Chong could not resolve this crisis, he would be even less capable of dealing with the dangers that were about to befall the imperial court. The three of them had coldly watched from the sidelines, wanting to see how Wang Chong would respond. Would he recklessly rely on his bravery to fight for his life, or would he use his wisdom and courage to use a more ingenious method? The three of them had been worried for a long time, but now they could finally relax. He has courage, willpower, and even more wisdom. This child is even more patient than we imagined. It wasn't easy for a spark like this to appear in the Tang dynasty. No matter what, we can't let it be destroyed. There will always come a time when one's strength is exhausted. For this child to be able to perform like this, our efforts to protect him were not in vain. Chapter 1246. Minister of Taichung Zhou Taiqin pays respects to Marquis. Not long after King Qi's envoy left, a resounding voice came from the crowd. Wang Chong's heart thumped as he stopped and turned in the direction of the voice. The crowd parted, and a figure with long sleeves and clothes swayed in the wind walked up from the back with a calm and unhurried pace. Almost at the same time behind him, another figure also followed up. Assistant Minister of Revenue, Zheng Qingli pays respects to Marquis. The two of them had been waiting in the back for some time, and only now did they leisurely walk forward, one in front of the other. Everyone's heart skipped a beat when they heard those two names. My lords, there is no need to be so polite, Wang Chong indifferently said to the pair. For a moment, all was quiet in front of the city gate, while Zhou Taiqin and Zheng Qingli were examining Wang Chong. Wang Chong was also examining these two important officials of the court. In the Battle of Talas, Abu Muslim and Qutayba had led hundreds of thousands of soldiers eastward. At this crucial moment, Wang Chong and Gao Xianji had almost died at Talas because they lacked soldiers. On the topic of sending troops, the two ministers in the court who opposed it the most were Zhou Taiqin and Zheng Qingli, the two ministers of the court. If not for Jiang Yunrang and Chao Qianzong's vigorous arguments in court, and his grandfather Duke Jiu's vigorous efforts to reverse the tide, the entire Tang dynasty, from the western regions to Qixi and Longxi, would have fallen into the hands of the Arabs. The young Marquis has rendered unparalleled military service in the West, and has been conferred the title of King of Foreign Lands by His Majesty. And now that Marquis has returned to the capital, almost half of the officials of the court, and all the great clans of the capital, have come to welcome him. But I can't help but ask, the Tang dynasty has expended an enormous amount of resources in the bitter Battle of Talas, and the two major battles at Khorasan. More than 100,000 soldiers have died, and for these two battles, hundreds of thousands of laborers have been mobilized. Does the young Marquis not feel ashamed? A general's success is built on the bones of 10,000. Does Marquis really feel at ease with the position of King of Foreign Lands? Boom! The words of Zhou Taiqin and Zheng Qingli caused the people around the city gate to pale. Wang Chong had returned victorious, and was in high spirits. All the civil and military officials of the court had come to congratulate him, and even King Qi had chosen to avoid the brunt of his words, only sending a minor official to inwardly ridicule him. But no one had dared to act like Zhou Taiqin and Zheng Qingli and criticize Wang Chong to his face. A general's success is built on the bones of 10,000 was a major taboo in front of generals, as it was unquestionably accusing the generals represented by Wang Chong of relying on the dead to advance. The atmosphere instantly tensed, even tenser than when King Qi's men had appeared. Impudent! Before Wang Chong could speak, Jiang Yunrang and Chao Qianzong angrily rebuked him. In the court debate, the two of them had clashed fiercely with Zhou Taiqin and Zheng Qingli. Zhou Taiqin, Zheng Qingli, what do the two of you mean by this? The young Marquis is leading his soldiers in a bloody battle, and you're saying it's wrong? Will you only be happy when the imperial court loses the war? The two of them were infuriated by Zhou Taiqin and Zheng Qingli's words. Arguing in the imperial court was one thing, but they had never imagined that, so long after the court debate had ended, the two of them would move the battlefield from the imperial court to the city gate, even making things difficult for Wang Chong in front of so many people. Right and wrong, right and wrong. Right is right and wrong is wrong. Do we need to be divided by time? Could it be that once the young Marquis returns to the capital, the black becomes white and the straight becomes square? It's not that we want to lose this war, but the prosperity of the Great Tang is the result of the efforts of so many people. Now that the imperial court is neglecting its roots and pursuing trifles, even if it has rendered great military service, what is there to celebrate? Zhou Taiqin and Zheng Qingli took a step forward and spoke fearlessly. Wang Chong had not been present in that crucial court debate, and Duke Jiu's reputation was far above theirs. The two of them had long since wanted to find a chance to argue with Wang Chong. Now that Wang Chong had finally returned to the capital, and all the officials of the court were watching, the two of them would not let this opportunity slip by. "My lords, have you finished?" At this moment, a voice interrupted Jiang Yunrang and Chao Qianzong, who had been preparing to speak on Wang Chong's behalf. Wang Chong slowly took 2 steps forward, his eyes sharp and his body exploding with a powerful aura. Ever since ancient times, the imperial censor had used a single brush to write from life to death. No matter how great one's achievements were, they could be reduced to nothingness. Thus, even if they were criticized, very few generals would argue with them. But this time, Zhou Taiqin and Zheng Qingli were facing Wang Chong. Zhou Taiqin is willing to listen to my lord's brilliant opinion. Zhou Taiqin and Zheng Qingli did not back down in the slightest upon seeing Wang Chong. On the contrary, with a shake of their robes, they took 2 steps forward. The surrounding crowd instantly froze. Given Zhou Taiqin and Zheng Qingli's actions, it would be difficult to resolve today's matter peacefully. My opinion can only be summed up in one word, pedantic. Wang Chong coldly stared at the pair. There was a saying that scholars misled the country. Zhou Taiqin and Zheng Chengli might not have had bad intentions, but there were many times when these good intentions ruined an empire, dragging countless lives into the abyss of suffering. Young Marquis, Zhou Taiqin and Zheng Chungli's eyes bulged at Wang Chong's words, and their hair stood on end. Even Jiang Yunrang and Chao Qianzong were frightened by Wang Chong's words. Pedantic was the most appropriate word to describe those inflexible and conservative civil officials of the court. But not even the crown prince's junior guardian, Wang Zhongxi, a war god of the Tang dynasty, would dare to say these words in front of Zhou Taiqin and Zheng Chengli. This had nothing to do with one's position, but was a taboo that would offend many civil officials. No one had expected Wang Chong to say these words. Young Marquis, if you don't give an explanation, even if you return victorious today, don't blame me and Brother Zheng for censuring you. We'll accuse you of insolence and arrogance because of your favor. We'll drag you before His Divine Majesty and have him judge you. Zhou Taiqin's expression chilled as he stared at Wang Chong, his eyes seeming to want to swallow Wang Chong whole. Hua! The crowd fell into an uproar at this sight. No one had expected a proper welcoming ceremony to devolve into this. If things went wrong, a celebratory feast might turn into a dispute in the imperial court. Since milords wished to hear it, I will tell you. There is great love and little love. There is great loyalty and little loyalty. Little love is love for one's father, brother, and kin. Above is filial piety, and below is friendship. Great love is love for one's country, for the world, for others. They treat the people of the world as if they were their father, brother, or kin. Wang Chong's words left everyone stunned. There is great loyalty and little loyalty. Little loyalty is self-restraint and propriety. They are loyal and responsible, assisting the sovereign above and pacifying the people below. Great loyalty is to pacify the world. They focus on the present and consider the next 10 years, 100 years, or even 1,000 years. They worry not just about the people of the present, but also about the future generations. Wang Chong gazed at the pair before him. These simple words had stunned not only Zhou Taiqin and Zheng Chengli, but the surrounding crowd as well. Great love and little love, little loyalty and great loyalty. No one had ever heard these words from Wang Chong before. The number of casualties in the Battle of Talas truly reached 100,000, and the money spent, and the number of laborers numbered in the hundreds of thousands. But if the Tang dynasty were to be defeated in this battle, have you ever thought about the consequences? Wang Chong stared at the pair, his eyes sharp. At that time, the number of casualties would not be 100,000, but several 100,000, perhaps even several million. Have you ever thought about what would happen if the Arabs were to break through Talas and advance through the western regions to Longxi, threatening the capital? What do you think would happen then? Wang Chong's voice was so deafening that Zhou Taiqin and Zheng Chengli opened their mouths in a daze. They wanted to say something, but not a single word came out. When it really comes to that, blood will flow like rivers, the land will be dyed red for thousands of li, and the entire Central Plains will be turned into an Azura battlefield. I'm afraid that it won't be something that can be salvaged with a few lords' impeachment, a long speech, and a strong argument. Of two evils, one must choose the lesser. The mobilization of soldiers and the long-distance expeditions were forced upon us. But compared to the 100,000 soldiers who died at Talas, you old officials of the imperial court are the true calamities to the country, the enemies of the people. If something really does happen, will you be able to bear the responsibility? Wang Chong's voice was deafening as he spoke these last words. Zhou Taiqin and Zheng Chengli were dumbstruck by Wang Chong's words, speechless. The two of them had been discussing the difference between civil and military with Wang Chong, but Wang Chong had been discussing the dreadful dangers that awaited them if they lost this war. None of them could deny this. Even Zhou Taiqin and Zheng Chengli had to admit that before the war, they had all underestimated the strength of the Arabs. If 1 million cavalry had charged into the interior, none of them would have dared to imagine the consequences. Zhou Taiqin and Zheng Chengli, are you still not going to withdraw? At this moment, Jiang Yunrang and Chao Qianzong spoke up. You rotten scholars only know about war and peace, only about how many people you've worked, but you've never thought about what the consequences would have been if you hadn't paid such a price. At the very least, all the people who have worked are still alive. From Longxi to Anxi, millions of people have been saved. And as for funds, the young marquis has already handed over 1 billion taels of gold to the imperial court, a fortune that far surpasses our expenditure in this war. And in the face of such a powerful foe and such a massive war, the young marquis has mobilized far fewer people than in the past. The road from the capital to Suya is 10,000 li long, and countless people have been mobilized, but all the expenses have been paid for by the young marquis and all the great clans. If this is what you mean by mobilizing so many people, then you should resign and hang up your seals as an apology to the world. Chapter 1247. Far too many changes had taken place in the imperial court, and all the soldiers in the military were under extreme pressure. As for Wang Chong, he was the new young marquis, and had won several battles to the west of the Tsong Mountains, making him their #1 target. The military was on the decline, and as the disciple favored by the Holy Emperor, Wang Chong had even been stripped of his military authority. The Confucians had actually come at a time like this to add insult to injury, to suppress and humiliate him. This was something that none of the commanders in the military could tolerate. Under the watchful eyes of so many people, Zhou Taiqin and Zheng Qingli couldn't help but blush and stare blankly, unable to say a word. Lord Zhou, Lord Zheng, the young marquis has traveled a long way. Let him rest. In this awkward atmosphere, an elderly voice rang out. Grand Scribe Yan Wenjiang had suddenly spoken. After all, they were both officials and civil officials. Yan Wenjiang finally couldn't help but step forward and give them a way out of this embarrassing situation by rebuking Wang Chong. Young marquis, this old man is old and cannot compare to youths like you. Since I have met with the young marquis, this old man will go and rest. Many of the young marquis's thoughts are truly rather interesting. In the future, this old man will personally pay a visit. Farewell, Lord Yan. Wang Chong did not mind and immediately bowed. On the other side, Zhou Taiqin and Zheng Qingli breathed long sighs of relief. Wang Chong's return from Khorasan had caused a stir in the capital, and Zhou Taiqin and Zheng Qingli had taken it upon themselves to go with the others to see Wang Chong. At the same time, they wanted to kill some of Wang Chong's prestige and break his spirit, but they hadn't expected Grand Scribe Yan Wenjiang quickly left, and Zhou Taiqin and Zheng Qingli followed him. With the three gone, the city gate returned to normal. Those who had come were guests, and the majority of those who had appeared at the city gate had come with good intentions. Wang Chong did not refuse, handing them over to Zhang Ke and recording their names, so that he could return them in the future. Lord Wang. As Zhang Ke was recording down the names, a young minor official appeared in front of Wang Chong and gave him a deep bow, appearing to be extremely courteous and respectful. May I ask which family it is? I want to record it down, Zhang Ke said. But the young official pretended not to hear. He stared at Wang Chong, ignoring Zhang Quebec. He slowly raised his head, a strange smile on his face. I was entrusted by someone to ask you a question. Sir, how does it feel to kill over 10,000 people? Boom. Hearing this, Wang Chong's pupils constricted. His expression changed abruptly as he stared at the young official in front of him. Almost at the same time, the bustling crowd fell into a dead silence. Hiss. Countless people who heard this gasped as they looked at the two people in the field. Zhang Ke had been preparing to register this minor official, but when he heard these words, he flew into a rage, his gaze icy. You're seeking death. Zhang Ke was infuriated, and without even thinking, he sent a palm strike at the minor official. In the minds of Zhang Ke and all the other Anqi and Qixi officers, Wang Chong was a true god. He had led the Tang dynasty to one glorious victory after another, and Zhang Ke and the others would not allow anyone to insult Wang Chong. Anyone who dared to do so, even if they had to put their lives on the line, would pay the price. Pa! A loud and clear slap resounded at the city gate. Half of the young minor official's face immediately swelled up. Old imperial censor. Seeing the person who slapped him, the young official covered half of his swollen face and was completely stunned. The one who had slapped him was not Zhang Ke, one of Wang Chang's subordinates, but the old imperial censor Deng Chang. At first, the old censor was still a few steps away, but when the young official said these words, he suddenly shot forward. With a speed that did not match his age, he fiercely slapped him across the face. "Bastard thing! You're just a minor official who hasn't made a single contribution to the imperial court, yet you dare to insult a minister who has rendered meritorious service to the Tang dynasty? How arrogant! Just who gave you such courage? Today, this old man will rip your mouth apart." Deng Chang's hair stood on end, his entire body seething with rage. Everything had to have a limit. He and Duan Chao had been watching from the rear, and the moment this minor official had appeared, they had sensed that something was wrong. They had been in court for many years, and had seen countless people, so they could tell at a glance if there was a problem. Zhou Taiqin, Zheng Qingli, and the others were only arguing with Wang Chong. Regardless of whether their actions were right or wrong, they were still reasonable people. However, the words of this young official were pure provocation and humiliation. Wang Chang's return to the capital had attracted the attention of all sorts of people, including various factions with ulterior motives. The three of them would not allow anyone to use this opportunity to make trouble for them. The minor official's face alternated between green and white, but he quickly regained his composure. His body had been bent, but it was gradually straightening, as if he were a spear nailed to the ground. Even in front of the old imperial censor, he showed no fear. "Ha, young Marquis, you have 3 old imperial censors helping you this time. But even if you kill me, I will still say the same thing. Those who kill will be killed. Young Marquis, your era is over." Buzz! Wang Chang's pupils constricted at these words, and his expression instantly turned icy. As for the young official, he immediately turned around and began to walk away. This bastard! Zhang Ke was unable to restrain his rage, and he raised his clenched fist to attack the minor official. But he had barely raised his arm when Wang Chong grabbed it. "Let him go!" As Wang Chong gazed at the young official's back, countless thoughts flitted through his eyes. No one could tell what he was thinking at this moment. Wang Chong watched as the minor official slowly vanished into the crowd with the spirit of a suicidal soldier. After a long while, he turned to the 3 old imperial censors at his side. "3 seniors, thank you very much. There's no need." The 3 waved their hands, a hint of fatigue on their faces. They were all extremely old, and after persisting for so long, coupled with their agitated emotions, they immediately felt somewhat tired. "Young Marquis, remember your words. We 3 old fellows will always be watching you. Don't disappoint us." Duan Chao, Deng Chang, and the other imperial censors quickly left. As they left, a stalwart figure slowly walked over. "Lord Zhangqiu." The sight of this stalwart figure caused Wang Chang's eyelids to twitch. This person was none other than Minister of War Zhangqiu Jianxiong. He had been standing motionlessly in the crowd for some time, and it was only when most of the people had left that he finally stepped forward. "Lord Wang, congratulations on your return." Zhangqiu Jianxiong took 2 steps forward and looked at Wang Chong, his face brimming with gratitude. "The Bureau of Military Personnel is busy, and I can't stay here for long. When Lord Wang has the time, we can return to the restaurant we went to before. I will personally hold a welcoming dinner for you. Lord Zhangqiu is too polite." Wang Chong returned the gesture. After exchanging a few more words, Zhangqiu Jinxiong quickly turned to leave. But as he turned to leave, no one noticed that a slip of paper had appeared in Wang Chong's hand. Wang Chong's eyebrows shot up as he looked in the direction that Zhangqiu Jinxiong had left. Without saying a word, he tucked the slip of paper into his robe. After Zhangqiu Jinxiong's departure, more and more people arrived. A moment later, the sound of a carriage rumbling could be heard, and a familiar carriage appeared at the city gates. Creak! The door of the carriage was pushed open, and a dignified figure wearing green casual clothes alighted from the carriage. "Big Uncle." Seeing that familiar figure, Wang Chong felt a surge of warmth in his heart. Striding forward, Wang Chong led Zhang Ke and the others forward to welcome the carriage. At this moment, the surrounding officials, nobles, and aristocratic families all retreated to the sides. They looked at the figure that walked out of the carriage and continuously bowed to pay their respects. Lord Wang! Lord Wang! The surrounding people bowed in greeting. Times had changed, and the Wang clan was like the midday sun, wielding immense influence. And Wang Chong's big uncle, Wang Zhen, was the representative of the Wang clan and a low-rank official of the court, possessing an extremely illustrious status. Chonga, it's been a long journey. You've worked hard. Let's go. I'll take you home. With a wave of his sleeve, Wang Zhen stopped in front of Wang Chong. After more than half a year, Wang Chong had matured a great deal, and there was a hint of weathering on his brow, but his aura had only grown more determined. Wang Zhen took in all this and inwardly nodded. A scholar who had been away for 3 days had to be looked at in a new light. Wang Chong had been tempered by war, and his aura had become even more outstanding, gradually beginning to exude the air of a great general. The Wang clan finally has a successor. For a moment, Wang Zhen was extremely pleased. After taking care of Zhang Ke and the others, Wang Chong quickly boarded Wang Zhen's carriage under the watchful eyes of countless nobles and clans. The carriage door closed, and with a shout, the uncle and nephew began to make their way to the eastern part of the city, vanishing into the crowd. The crowd also began to disperse. Without the clamor of the crowd, the surroundings gradually quieted down, and the carriage was even quieter. It was like a completely different world. As Wang Chong and Wang Zhen sat side by side, the mood in the carriage gradually turned strange. Is everything well in the clan? Wang Chong was the first to break the silence, his expression extremely solemn. Everything is fine. The old master is still here, and those people aren't bold enough to directly attack us. Wang Zhen sternly said. Now that there was no one else around, there was no need to hide anything, so the uncle and nephew went straight to the point. Karaisen Longxi biting Yuzhou, all of the Great Tang was like an earthquake. All of this revealed far too much information. The withdrawal of soldiers from Karaisen, the reduction of soldiers from the borders, the news that Big Dipper Great General Geshu Han had revealed, and the other news from the court. All of this was too unsettling. On his return, Wang Chong was most worried about his grandfather, big uncle, big aunt, third uncle, and all the other members of the Wang clan. Upon hearing Wang Zhen's words, Wang Chong's heart finally relaxed a little. Is there still no news from the King of Song? Chapter 1248. Wang Zhen shook his head. In this period of time, I've only seen His Highness the King of Song twice, and each time, we didn't have much time to converse. Wang Chong deeply frowned at his big uncle's words. From the moment he had received the imperial edict in Karaisen, Wang Chong had been pondering this entire matter. His apparent demotion, the withdrawal of the army from Karaisen, and the stripping of his military authority. Even if someone wanted to do this, they should have never passed. The King of Song, his big uncle Wang Zhen, Minister of War Zhangqiu Jinxiong, Yang Zhao and the consort Taijin behind him, his grandfather Duke Jiu's enormous influence in the court, the assistance of the other civil and military officials, and the favor of the Holy Emperor. All of this was like an invisible barrier that kept out all malice. This was also why Wang Chong had been able to fight in peace. But even with this sturdy barrier, an imperial edict had been passed, stripping Wang Chong of his military authority, and turning everything Wang Chong had worked so hard to build up for the Tang dynasty into nothing. Wang Chong had never imagined this. And the strangest thing about this entire matter was the King of Song's attitude. After this incident, Wang Chong had believed that he would quickly receive a letter from the King of Song and learn of the cause and effect of this matter. This way, he would at least know what had happened. But after this incident, more than half a month had passed from Karaisen to the capital, and yet the King of Song had not sent a single letter. This matter was far too strange. Just what happened in the imperial court that day? Wang Chong thought for a few moments before finally asking the question he most wanted to know. In the entire royal court, if he couldn't get the answer he wanted from the King of Song, the only one who could possibly tell him was Big Uncle Wang General, as a high official of the first rank in the imperial court. His eldest uncle's position was not as high as that of the 3 dukes, but he definitely had access to a lot of secret information about the imperial court. Back then, Wang Chong had already asked Big Uncle Wang Zhen about it. However, First Uncle had said it very vaguely, almost not revealing any information. He only said that everything would be discussed after Wang Chong returned. Now the time was finally right. Sigh. Unexpectedly, upon hearing Wang Chong's words, Wang Zhen's brows furrowed deeply. A hint of worry appeared on his composed face. Chong, I can't answer your question right now. Too many things had happened during this period of time. I've been in the court for 20 years, and I've weathered many storms and waves, but none can compare to this turmoil. There are many things that I can't even explain to you. Even now, I still don't know how the imperial edict was passed. Just what happened in the imperial court that day. I also want to know. Wang Zhen's words left Wang Chong flabbergasted. Big Uncle, just what happened? Why don't you know? Wang Chong's brow deeply creased. Wang Chong had never imagined that someone of his big uncle's status would be unaware of such a major event. Chonger, let me finish and you'll understand. Wang Zhen leaned back against the carriage, a bitter smile in his eyes. There was something wrong with this matter from the very start. Chonger, you might not know this, but I wasn't even in the imperial court when that incident occurred. I wasn't even involved in the final decision. Wang Chonger's eyes flashed. Buzz! Wang Zhen's words left Wang Chong's heart in shock. At this moment, countless thoughts flew through Wang Chong's mind. Given his big uncle's status as a first-rank official, no ordinary person could transfer him out of the capital. Moreover, his big uncle was an important representative of the Wang clan in the imperial court. If Wang Chong wanted to deal with Wang Chong, he would have to transfer his big uncle. And based on his big uncle's words, he hadn't even been in the capital when that incident occurred. Wang Chong was confident that this was no simple coincidence. This looked more like a well-prepared and meticulously planned trap. Wang Zhen clearly understood this, and an almost imperceptible hint of worry appeared on his brow. Many things could only be discovered when the time came, but by that time, it would already be too late. Before the incident, I received news that a disaster had struck the Jiangnan province, and the people were rioting. Many fields and houses had been destroyed, and the local officials were unable to deal with it. Coupled with the petitions of the people, the imperial court discussed this matter. Although everyone believed that the Tang dynasty was flourishing, and that the Jiangnan province would not be in much danger, when it came to the livelihood of the people, this was no small matter. Thus, a high-ranking official had to be dispatched to pacify the area and take charge of the situation. After some discussion, it was decided that I would be dispatched. Wang Zhen slightly raised his head, a look of reminiscence in his eyes. Although I was rather surprised, this involved the people and was part of my duty, so I had to take responsibility. Thus, I set off for the Jiangnan province. At the time, the king of Song was also in court. Neither I nor the king of Song thought much about it, because even if it wasn't me, there would definitely be someone else. But when I arrived at the Jiangnan province, I discovered that everything was completely different from what I had heard from the imperial court. A flood truly did occur in the Jiangnan province, but the disaster had already been pacified, and all the people had been dealt with appropriately. In addition, the disaster was far less serious than we had imagined, and there were no riots or petitions from the victims. The cause was the dereliction of duty of the clerk who had written the memorial. Without even carefully investigating the matter, he casually wrote the memorial, leading to the disaster. That clerk had already been dealt with, and the principal local officials had all resigned. All of this had already been taken care of by the time I arrived. It was also at this time that I received the news that the imperial court had approved the edict. Wang Chong said nothing, his face slowly turning gloomy. As the carriage rumbled along, Big Uncle Wang Zhen's voice continued to ring in his ears, this time with a gravity that had not been there before. From the moment I received the news, I felt that something was wrong and rushed back to the capital. But in just a short period of time, the entire imperial court has undergone a great change. Many of the officials I used to know have disappeared, but there are many new faces that I have never seen before. Did Big Uncle not investigate their backgrounds? The imperial court is no small matter. Without outstanding achievements or talent, it's very difficult to enter it. Wang Chong suddenly interjected. From a minor official to a high-ranking official of the imperial court, many people would need to spend their entire lives studying and studying in order to reach this level. And for even more people, the Great Hall of the Imperial Palace, the place where the empire's authority was concentrated, was a place that they would never be able to dream of in their entire lives. Wang Chong had fought so many battles and rendered so many meritorious deeds, but all he possessed was military authority. When it came to the politics of the imperial court, he was only given the title of advisor-in-waiting. I've investigated it. Although their appearance was rather abrupt, their backgrounds are impeccable. They either have local officials or have made many meritorious deeds in the past, but they've always kept their achievements to themselves. It was only recently that they finally erupted and submitted their memorials to the imperial court. How could this be? Wang Chong's brow fiercely rose. The Tang dynasty had long since established a bureaucratic system of examination and selection. It was impossible for someone to accumulate so many meritorious deeds without reporting them to their superiors. This may sound possible in theory, but it will never happen in practice. I had my suspicions at the start as well, but later events proved that the meritorious deeds listed in the imperial court's memorials were true. Wang Zhen bitterly smiled. After sitting in the imperial court for so many years, it was impossible for anyone to fool him with tricks. But it was precisely because he had investigated the matter that Wang Zhen found it increasingly difficult to refute it. The carriage was deathly silent. After a long while, Wang Chong's voice suddenly rang out. Big Uncle didn't check their records. Chong'er, you truly are smart. Wang Zhen sighed. Their resumes are indeed impeccable. All their identities and backgrounds are perfect. However, I've checked their files, and all the papers used in the files are brand new. If a complete file is real and effective, the paper used to record the files can't be so brand new. These people schemed so meticulously, and this is probably the only flaw they left behind. This is something that no method can make up for. Even a wise man would make a mistake. No matter how perfect one's resume was, there would still be flaws. Time was the only thing that could not be faked. Just as Wang Chong was speaking, the carriage suddenly jolted. At the same time, Coachman's voice came from outside. Old master, we've arrived. In an instant, Wang Chong and Wang Jin came to their senses. Pushing open the carriage door, the two of them walked out. Outside the carriage, a familiar residence appeared before their eyes. This was Big Uncle Wang Jin's residence. Wang Chong and Wang Jin no longer discussed the matters of the imperial court. With a wave of his sleeve and an indifferent expression, he walked into the residence as if he was meeting a relative. In the residence, Wang Chong paid his respects to Big Aunt Xing and cousin Wang Li. After spending a few moments in the residence, he quickly left. Everything seemed perfectly normal. After leaving his big uncle's residence, Wang Chong headed straight for the King of Song's residence. There were far too many suspicious points in this matter, and only one person could answer those questions in Wang Chong's heart. It was the King of Song. As a member of the imperial family of the Tang dynasty, as well as an important figure in the imperial court, the King of Song was at the center of this entire affair. Every upheaval, every political storm, almost always involved King Song. Halt! Who goes there? Before Wang Chong had even gotten close to the dignified and solemn gate of the King Song residence, he heard a furious roar as two fully armored guards at the gate stepped forward to stop Wang Chong. The two crossed their spears, and their expressions were sharp and menacing. The King of Song residence does not allow entry to unauthorized personnel. Don't you know this? Hurry up and leave. Seeing the two guards before him, Wang Chong's face darkened. He had come to the King of Song residence many times, but he had never been stopped. Moreover, Wang Chong had never seen these two guards before. I am the King of Foreign Lands, Wang Chong. I have come to pay my respects to His Highness the King of Song. Please send a message for me. Wang Chong took in a deep breath and quickly calmed down. Chapter 1249. In just a moment, a tall, burly, and imposing guard leader strode out from inside. His footsteps were heavy, and each step seemed to carry the weight of 1,000 caddies. The man first suspiciously examined Wang Chong, and then he quickly said, "His Highness is not present. His Highness is not present. King of foreign lands, please return." The guard captain's voice was crisp and efficient, and he immediately gestured for Wang Chong to be escorted out. "Not present? Where did he go?" Wang Chong asked. "The King of Song never left the capital, and the capital was only so big. He couldn't have gone far. I don't know. In short, His Highness is not present. Please return." The guard captain had an indifferent expression. "Since that's the case, let me see the old butler," Wang Chong said. "Please go back," the guard captain said, his tone much more forceful this time. But Wang Chong did not argue. Instead, he strode toward the King of Song's residence. "Stop." Everyone's expression changed when they saw this scene. 2 guards raised their spears and aimed them at Wang Chong. The guard captain's expression chilled as he blocked Wang Chong's path. But when they saw the object in Wang Chong's hand, they all paled. "The King of Song's token," one of the guards couldn't help but say. Wang Chong had taken out nothing but the token that the King of Song had given to Wang Chong during the War of the Southwest. "All of you withdraw." At this moment, an elderly voice resounded in everyone's ears. "Lord Butler." Upon hearing this voice, everyone immediately began to withdraw. At the same time, Wang Chong looked up and saw a familiar figure standing in front of the main gate of the King of Song's mansion, clad in a black robe. It had been more than half a year since they last met. The old butler was as healthy as ever, but there was a hint of vicissitudes between his brows. The old butler stood above and finally spoke slowly. "Wang Chong, come in." This time, no one stopped Wang Chong. Even the other guards who sensed the commotion at the gate retreated. Wang Chong walked through the entire mansion and walked up the tall stairs, finally stopping in front of the old butler. "Old butler, long time no see." Wang Chong bowed respectfully, just like the first time he met the old butler. "You really haven't changed at all." A smile finally appeared on the old butler's troubled face. The current Wang Chong had far surpassed him in terms of martial arts, strength, and status. But he was still as humble and courteous as before. This was also what the old butler felt gratified about. "I heard that you had returned to the capital. I expected that you would come. Follow me." The old butler glanced at Wang Chong, then quickly turned around and walked into the main hall. Wang Chong followed closely behind him. The main hall was quiet, as if they had entered another world. The old butler sat down in the hall, picked up an exquisite teapot on the table, and poured a cup for Wang Chong and himself. Wang Chong glanced at it. The tea in the cup was still hot and steaming. Clearly he had expected this. Wang Chong was silent for a moment, then sat down beside the old butler. "Wang Chong, I know that you must have many doubts, but the guards at the door did not lie to you. The King of Song is indeed not here." The old butler placed the teapot back on the table and spoke slowly. Hearing this, Wang Chong did not say anything, but his brows twitched slightly. He looked into the old butler's eyes. The old butler's expression was the same as when Wang Chong had first met him. In that instant, Wang Chong immediately knew that the old butler was not lying. Where did the King of Song go? It seemed like only a moment, but also like countless long centuries. Wang Chong took a sip of the fragrant tea in his cup and suddenly spoke. "I can't answer you, but His Highness does indeed have something he needs to do." The old butler said softly, "That matter? His Highness is actually more confused than you are, and he is even more unwilling to allow such a resolution to be passed. His Highness has always been in the pro-war faction in the court. Be it you, Duke Jiu, or your father, everyone understands this. But why is it that I have sent so many letters to the King of Song, but he has never replied to me? Tell me what on earth is going on. If the King of Song has his own difficulties, then tell me, what is it that he is afraid of?" Wang Chong said in a low voice. This time the old butler did not speak. He only picked up the teapot on the table and slowly poured himself a cup. The tea in the teapot clinked against the porcelain cup. Amidst the silence, the old butler finally spoke again. Wang Chong, His Highness also has his difficulties. I can only tell you that in a few days, His Highness will definitely give you an answer. But before that, His Highness still needs to understand one thing. Only then will he be able to answer all your questions. With that last sentence, the old butler looked at Wang Chong with an incomparably deep gaze. Wang Chong looked at the old butler and fell into a long silence. He seemed to have understood something. I understand. Putting down the teacup in his hand, Wang Chong flicked his sleeves and finally stood up. He then quickly walked out. Wang Chong, aren't you going to ask about what happened that day? This time, it was the old butler's turn to be surprised. There's no need. Wang Chong's voice echoed in the main hall. Before his voice faded away, he had already walked out of the main hall. Outside the main hall, the sun shone brightly and the spring wind blew on his face, reflecting the chaos in Wang Chong's eyes. In the end, Wang Chong still did not manage to meet the King of Song, nor did he get the answer he wanted. But no matter what, the King of Song had sent the old butler to tell him that he would get an answer in a few days. At least he had an explanation. Roll, roll, roll. Outside the main street, the crowd was surging. Wang Chong thought for a moment and was walking in the direction of his home when he suddenly heard an unfamiliar voice. Sir, do you need a carriage? There's no need. Wang Chong didn't even think about it as he continued forward, but he quickly heard a voice at his ear. But didn't my lord already promise my master that when dragons and tigers meet, you should drink a cup? Buzz! Wang Chong's face flickered as he turned his head. At first glance, Wang Chong saw the coachman in the carriage. He was wearing a green hat, the brim of which was pulled down so low that it was impossible to see his face. He was sitting at the front, driving a simple and unadorned carriage. There was nothing special about the carriage, and it was almost identical to the ones used by merchants in the capital. But when his eyes flitted over a unique mark on the wheels, Wang Chong's eyebrows couldn't help but twitch. Then let me have a ride. Wang Chong quickly regained his composure, and with a wave of his sleeve, he stepped onto the carriage. Hiya! Without a word, the coachman drove the carriage into the surging stream of people, mixing with the other carriages in the capital. After traveling through the streets and alleys for an hour, the carriage finally arrived at the Minister of War's residence. The moment Wang Chong stepped off the carriage, people from the Minister of War's residence rushed forward to conceal Wang Chong and escort Wang Chong into the residence. The carriage on the street only paused for a few moments before continuing on its way, making its way through the capital. Boom! As soon as Wang Chong stepped into the hall, the door behind him rumbled shut. At the same time, many candles lit up on the walls of the hall. The Minister of War's residence seemed to be preparing to face a formidable foe. Wang Chong silently watched all this, his face unperturbed, but his heart skipped a beat before quickly returning to normal. Lord Zhangqiu, Wang Chong called out. He quickly raised his head and began to walk toward that familiar mountainous figure. Across from Wang Chong was a figure dressed in casual clothes, his hands solemnly standing. It seemed like he had been waiting for some time. Wang Chong, you finally come. Upon seeing Wang Chong, Zhangqiu Jinxiong gave a long sigh of relief, his entire body seeming much more relaxed. Lord Zhangqiu, has the situation in the capital already reached such a dire state? Even someone of my lord's status, as the Minister of War, needs to be so secretive. As Wang Chong spoke, he walked over. If one didn't know, no one would believe that the Minister of War of the Tang dynasty, one of the most authoritative figures in the world, Zhangqiu Jinxiong, would use a secret method like a slip of paper to deliver a message to him at the city gate. Not only that, Zhangqiu Jinxiong had also prepared the carriage that he had used. The Minister of War's residence was so heavily guarded that it didn't seem like the residence of a high-ranking official of the imperial court, but more like that of a frontier expedition. Wang Chong, if you had seen the changes in the capital like I have, you wouldn't say that. These are troubled times, and the imperial court is completely different from what you knew. Zhangqiu Jinxiong sighed, and then he pointed a finger at a black sandalwood table. There was not a single person in the hall, not even maids or servants. Zhangqiu Jinxiong picked up the teapot on the table and poured a cup for himself and Wang Chong. Then, he raised the cup and took a sip, a bitter expression on his face. Wang Chong sat down and glanced at Zhangqiu Jinxiong's profile. After more than half a year, Zhangqiu Jinxiong appeared to have aged a great deal, and there were many wrinkles at the corners of his eyes and face. It seemed like he had a lot on his mind. Zhangqiu Jinxiong was a top-class martial artist, already at the peak of the Saint martial realm, an imperial great general. Wang Chong found it very difficult to believe that such a person had aged so much in such a short time. Lord Zhangqiu, just what happened that day? Why did the imperial court turn out like this? The Bureau of Military Personnel is the core of the world's mobilization of soldiers. Any mobilization of soldiers, including appointments, cannot bypass the Bureau of Military Personnel. They could not bypass you and directly issue that order. So, my lord, I could only look for you. A long sigh resounded through the hall at Wang Chong's words. It seems like Wang Zhen has already told you a few things. Zhangqiu Jinxiong had a complicated expression. Chapter 1250. What? Wang Chong's body trembled in shock at these words. Now that I think about it, many things had been wrong since the morning court session. Usually, regardless of whether the court session was in session or not, I would have received news early in the morning, but I didn't receive any news that day. It wasn't until noon that someone came to inform me to prepare for the morning court session. And it wasn't the usual eunuch of the palace either. By the time I arrived, the court was in a hubbub. The session had already been going on for quite some time. Only then did I realize that other than myself, all the other officials were doing as usual. Zhangqiu Jinxiong continued, his head slightly raised, his breathing ragged, a complicated look in his eyes. Even after half a month had passed, some things were still very strange in retrospect. It was as if there was an invisible hand controlling everything, making it hard for them to breathe. The Minister of War was the center of authority in the military, his status even above that of a great general on the border. He controlled all the soldiers in the world, and was a true titan of the empire. Even the officials had to be wary of him. Zhangqiu Jinxiong had never imagined that anyone or any faction would be so bold as to play tricks on this matter. There was something strange about the court session that day. If I hadn't been in the court, I wouldn't have been able to sense it. A look of reminiscence appeared on Zhangqiu Jinxiong's face as he continued to speak. He had hidden these matters in his heart this entire time, not telling anyone. If the person he was listening to hadn't been Wang Chong, he would never have said a single word. By the time I arrived at the court, the decision had already begun, and the court was in an uproar. At the start, just like everyone else, I felt that the matter was absurd and impossible to pass. But the development of the matter was completely different from what I imagined. In the past, I would discuss this matter with your big uncle. Your big uncle, and I wouldn't even need to discuss this matter. Sometimes, we could understand each other's intentions with a single glance. But I quickly realized that your big uncle wasn't present. Moreover, the direction of the discussion was completely wrong, as if it was being controlled by an invisible hand. The originally impossible matter suddenly became more and more likely to pass. The King of Song, and I immediately sensed that something was wrong. After all, our three sides had formed an alliance for quite some time. Since there is such a proposal, we are not too worried, because the possibility of passing was still very low. But when it came time for the final vote, something that the King of Song and I didn't expect happened. Zhangqiu Jinxiong sighed deeply. Sometimes there were some things that didn't need to be said in detail. Just a long sigh was enough to reveal too much. Even though Wang Chong hadn't participated in the court assembly that day, from the few words that Zhangqiu Jinxiong had said, Wang Chong could already sense the intense emotions that had gripped him that day. What the hell happened? Wang Chong could not help but ask. The King of Song and I anticipated everything, but we didn't foresee that the civil officials in the court who had always been on good terms with us, our own people, would all betray us at the critical moment. Zhangqiu Jinxiong said. Boom! Hearing this, Wang Chong's body shook violently, and his eyes finally revealed an extremely shocked expression. Zhangqiu Jinxiong didn't say anything, and neither did Wang Chong. The entire hall immediately fell into a deathly stillness. Zhangqiu Jinxiong's words caught Wang Chong by surprise. A civil official, and one who had always been on good terms with the king of Song, the Wang clan, and Zhangqiu Jinxiong at that. Wang Chong could already empathize with how Zhangqiu Jinxiong felt that day. He also understood why the atmosphere in the capital was so treacherous, and why Zhangqiu Jinxiong had to meet him in such a manner. The two of them fell into deep thought. Actually, if that's all, it would be fine. But that's not what I'm worried about. After a long while, Zhangqiu Jinxiong's voice sounded once more, breaking the silence. Even though the situation that day was strange, even if all the civil officials who had been on our side betrayed us, it still wouldn't have been enough to pass such a resolution. What I'm truly worried about is still the Holy Emperor. What? Hearing these words, Wang Chong's face warped. He abruptly raised his head. Lord Zhangqiu, what do you mean by this? Wang Chong, you don't understand. It doesn't matter who is pulling the strings behind the scenes, what they want to do. Even if they mobilize all the civil officials to betray us, it doesn't matter at all. Because what is truly important will always be His Majesty alone. Without His Majesty's approval, no resolution will be passed. Zhangqiu Jinxiong gave a long sigh. The affairs of the imperial court have always been filled with storms and storms. Although this matter is disadvantageous to our militarists, it's only a momentary setback. In truth, even if it were 10 times worse, I wouldn't be too flustered. But the Holy Emperor, he is the one who makes me the most uneasy. In all of the Central Plains, His Majesty is the greatest sovereign that I have ever known and met. It is precisely his lofty aspirations and determination that united the strength of all the people and allowed him to pacify the world and sweep through the lands, bringing the Central Plains to an unprecedented level of prosperity. It is precisely because of him that we imperial great generals can wholeheartedly fight on the border, vowing to repay him with our lives. But His Majesty, I don't know what happened, but I'm certain that there's something wrong with His Majesty. There's something wrong with the Holy Emperor, far too wrong. This is what I'm truly worried about. Zhangqiu Jinxiong's brow deeply creased, his entire being burdened with worry. His Majesty the Holy Emperor was publicly acknowledged as the #1 man in the world, whether it was in terms of governance or martial arts. Even now, Zhangqiu Jinxiong had no idea what had happened to the Holy Emperor. Buzz! While Zhangqiu Jinxiong was still perplexed, Wang Chong felt like a boulder weighing 10,000 tons had been thrown into his mind, sending massive waves surging through his body. Zhangqiu Jinxiong didn't understand what had happened to the Holy Emperor, but Wang Chong knew all too well. That failure to break into the divine martial realm had affected the Holy Emperor and the entire Tang dynasty. Don't tell me that thing. Don't tell me it started so soon? Wang Chong's heart was heavy. Now that he thought about it, Wang Chong had actually sensed something from his first meeting with the Holy Emperor. Could it be that, while he was on the Western expedition, the Holy Emperor's condition had worsened to this extent? Wang Chong's heart instantly sank. As a subject, he could not criticize his sovereign, much less the Holy Emperor. Wang Chong was sure that Zhangqiu Jinxiong had sensed something. Wang Chong, this matter is far from as simple as you think. The capital appears calm on the surface, but undercurrents are surging beneath the surface. Your transfer back from Khorasan and your apparent demotion are only the tip of the iceberg. Moreover, your edge is too sharp, and your battles with Arabia are practically unprecedented. Right now, the Eastern and Western Turkic Khaganates, the Goguryeo Empire, Nanzhao, and even Uzan have all received a massive shock, and have once more developed a reverence for the Tang dynasty. But it's precisely because of this that the tallest tree in the forest is the first to be blown down by the wind. You are currently the most dazzling existence in the military, and if they want to make an example of you against the militarists, they will definitely target you. I'm worried that the matter in Khorasan is only the beginning, so you must be extremely careful. Zhangqiu Jinxiong's expression was extremely grave. Throughout the Tang dynasty, Wang Chong could be said to be the youth that Zhangqiu Jinxiong most admired. The character and spirit he exuded, as well as his outstanding skill in the art of war, were the most outstanding of all the people Zhangqiu Jinxiong had ever seen. It was precisely for this reason that Zhangqiu Jinxiong wanted nothing to happen to him. This was also why he had appeared at the city gate. Buzz! Hearing Zhangqiu Jinxiong's words, Wang Chong's eyes narrowed, and his face warped. He had never imagined that Zhangqiu Jinxiong would give him this note as a warning. He truly found it difficult to imagine what Zhangqiu Jinxiong, the Minister of War, could have to be so cautious about. Lord Zhangqiu, has the situation reached such a critical point? Wang Chong sternly said. Zhangqiu Jinxiong was known as the Tiger of the Empire, and this was a testament to his personality. Upon his return, Wang Chong had believed that Zhangqiu Jinxiong would at least be able to oversee the situation. He had never imagined that the situation in the capital would be far more serious than he had imagined. The situation might be even more serious than I said. Zhangqiu Jinxiong gravely stared at Wang Chong. Thump thump thump. Just as Wang Chong was about to pursue the matter, a series of heavy knocks sounded from the door. Hearing the knocks, Zhangqiu Jinxiong's face immediately warped, and Wang Chong also turned his head over. Who is it? Zhangqiu Jinxiong suddenly bellowed, and the atmosphere in the hall immediately turned heavy. Lord, there are people from the Bureau of Military Personnel outside. They say that they have an urgent matter that requires your attention tonight. The voice of an Annam Protectorate commander sounded from outside. Seated by the side, Wang Chong clearly saw Zhangqiu Jinxiong's complexion change rapidly. Rage, fear, indignation, and finally a deep sense of helplessness. Then he slowly calmed down. In that instant, Wang Chong seemed to understand something, but he didn't say anything. Wang Chong, something has happened in the Bureau of Military Personnel. It seems like I won't be able to accompany you. Zhangqiu Jinxiong stood up, glanced at Wang Chong, and hesitated. It seems like we'll have to talk another time. Wang Chong understands. Lord, you may go. Wang Chong also stood up. Some things didn't need to be said at all. Just a glance was enough to reveal too much information. Zhangqiu Jinxiong opened the door and left. Wang Chong watched as Zhangqiu Jinxiong boarded a green carriage. Both sides of the carriage were officials from the Bureau of Military Personnel that Wang Chong had never seen before. After Zhangqiu Jinxiong left, the two quickly boarded the carriage and left together with Zhangqiu Jinxiong. Wang Chong watched until Zhangqiu Jinxiong disappeared into the distance before walking out of the Minister of War's residence. Raising his head, Wang Chong glanced at the sky. It was already dusk, and the lanterns were already lit. Is he already so busy? Chapter 1251. After leaving the Minister of War's residence, Wang Chong returned to his residence. Chonga, you're finally back. The entrance to the Wang family residence was brightly lit, and Wang Chong's mother, Lady Zhao, and several maids had been waiting at the entrance. When she saw Wang Chong's thin appearance, she immediately pulled Wang Chong into her embrace and wept tears of joy. There was no mother in the world who did not love her child. No matter how awe-inspiring Wang Chong was in the outside world, whether he was made a king or a marquis, in the eyes of a mother, he would always be a willful and mischievous child who needed her care. With the family reunited, Lady Zhao asked no questions. She only prepared a sumptuous dinner and watched as Wang Chong finished eating. After an uneventful night, Wang Chong returned to his room. The Wang clan's residence was like an invisible barrier, blocking all the storms and the disputes of the court outside its walls. Wang Chong did not want to bring the matters of the court to his home. Just what's going on? In the dead of night, Wang Chong sat cross-legged on his bed, his eyes half closed, his mind in turmoil. Everything, starting from Karasan, including the news he had received in Qixi, his meeting with Geshu Han, the people he had encountered at the gate of the capital, the events that had taken place, his conversation with his big uncle, the old butler, and Zhangqiu Jinxiong, had passed through Wang Chong's mind, each detail magnified countless times in Wang Chong's mind. Wang Chong suddenly thought of those 3 Confucian experts who had taken over his military authority in Karasan, and the marks on their wrists. In a flash, Wang Chong seemed to think of something. Was it them? Could it be them? Wang Chong muttered to himself, vaguely understanding. But Wang Chong still had far too many doubts. Cuckoo. Just as he was deep in thought, The sound of flapping wings suddenly came from the night sky, accompanied by the hooting of owls. Hearing this cry, Wang Chong instantly came back to his senses. "Come in." Wang Chong blinked his eyes and said calmly as he sat on the bed. It was quiet outside the room. Other than the sound of the night breeze, there was no other sound. But soon, just when people thought that there was no one outside, the door to Wang Chong's room suddenly opened, and a nimble figure suddenly jumped in from the gap. "Greetings, Marquis." Just 5 or 6 steps away from Wang Chong, the figure suddenly stopped. The figure was tall and burly, with a huge eagle perched on his left shoulder. His body was bent, and his expression was respectful. "The eagle, did you find anything?" Wang Chong suddenly said, revealing the other's identity. The person who had intruded into the Wang clan residence in the middle of the night was none other than the eagle that Wang Chong had left in the capital after the Southwest War. After Wang Chong went north to Wuxiang, he had rarely used the eagle, but this did not mean that the eagle was not important. On the contrary, the eagle had always been carrying out a mission according to Wang Chong's orders. On his return to the capital, the world was treacherous and fraught with danger. The first thing Wang Chong thought of was to recall the eagle and the newly trained intelligence squad. "Lord Marquis, according to your orders, from the moment you arrived at the gate of the capital to the moment you appeared, we placed many spies in the capital. Everything is under surveillance, including those unfamiliar officials. After Marquis left, we sent people to follow those insolent and secretive officials." The eagle sternly said, his body bowing. "Did you find out where they were staying, and their identity and background?" Wang Chong asked. The eagle hesitated for a moment, then finally shook his head. "No, our people followed them, but it wasn't long before we lost contact with them, as if they had evaporated into thin air. These people were all top-class experts that I personally trained, and are extremely experienced. When Marquis wasn't here, I took them to Biting and Yuzhou for training, and they all successfully completed their missions. They were just some minor officials, and in normal circumstances, they wouldn't have failed. Thus, when I received the news, I immediately began to investigate. Only now, after the Z period, did I find their corpses in the moat outside the city." Buzz! At the eagle's words, Wang Chong's eyes widened and his brow furrowed. Those 2 minor officials, especially the one who had provoked Wang Chong, seemed far too abnormal. Wang Chong had ordered the eagle to send people to follow them, but he hadn't expected this result. If there really was nothing wrong with them, and they really were officials of the court, this sort of thing would never have happened. Where did the last clue lead to? Wang Chong was quiet for a few moments before he suddenly asked. "The eastern part of the city." The eagle respectfully replied. "I understand. You can leave." Wang Chong nodded. "Marquis, be at ease. No matter what, I will think of a way to find those 2 minor officials." The eagle took in the expression on Wang Chong's face and said solemnly. There was an undercurrent in the imperial court. A powerful force seemed to be deliberately targeting Marquis. They were so arrogant that they had even sent people to pretend to be officials to provoke and humiliate Wang Chong at the city gates. This news had already spread among Wang Chong's subordinates in the capital. This was something that Eagle and the others could not tolerate. Whoever dared to go against Wang Chong would be an enemy of all of them. "I understand." Wang Chong waved his hand. "Send someone to meet the family of the spy who was killed, and give them a pension. If there are any difficulties in their family, try your best to help them. As for the rest, don't alert them for now. I have my own plans," Wang Chong said in a low voice. "Yes." The eagle quickly left the room, as quietly as he had come, not alerting anyone. The night quickly passed, and at dawn, while Wang Chong was still meditating in his room, his mother's maid rushed into Wang Chong's room with a red face. "Young master, someone from the imperial court has come. The madam says that you must immediately see them." At the gate of the Wang family residence, Wang Chong met with the emissary from the imperial court. "Marquis, please. Today is your wedding day. Please take a bath and change your clothes, and then come with us to meet His Divine Majesty. The Bureau of Rights has already prepared the documents. Once you meet His Divine Majesty, it will be announced to the world that you will be officially conferred the title of King of Foreign Lands. At the gate, an elderly eunuch dressed in embroidered robes had an elated look on his face. Behind him were the officials of the Golden Guards, the Imperial Army, the City Guard, the Bureau of Rights, and the Chamberlain of Dependencies. All of them had come to greet Wang Chong. Once one was conferred the title of king or marquis, the ceremony would be announced to the world. Only after meeting with the Holy Emperor and receiving the approval of the Bureau of Rights could Wang Chong be considered the true king of foreign lands. This was the most basic ceremony for conferring the title of marquis in the Tang dynasty. I'll have to trouble eunuchs. Wang Chong bathed and changed into the red ceremonial robe he had worn when conferring the title of marquis. He quickly boarded the palanquin and set off for the imperial palace. It was still early, and only a little light had begun to peek out from the east, but the streets were already packed with people. All the people who had heard the news were lining the streets to welcome him. They had lived in the capital for a long time, and they were well aware of the customs of conferring titles to marquis. Look, the young marquis. The young marquis is going to see the Holy Emperor for his conferment. You're still talking about the young marquis? He's already the king of foreign lands. The first king of a different surname, conferred by the Tang dynasty. Ha ha ha. Only a hero like this is worthy of the title of king of foreign lands. A great hero. This is a true hero of our Central Plains. Everyone look. Crowds gathered on both sides of the street, all of them brimming with enthusiasm and joy. The atmosphere was even livelier than during a festival. Yesterday's events at the city gate had already spread like the wind through the capital, and Wang Chong was like the noon sun in the capital. He's coming, he's coming. As Wang Chong was riding on the palanquin, the crowd in front of him began to excitedly yell. Sitting in the palanquin, Wang Chong had yet to react when he heard a massive boom. Boom! Amidst the deafening cheers, a resplendent firework suddenly soared into the sky. Under the first rays of the morning sun, the firework soared dozens of meters into the sky and violently exploded, turning into thousands of bright fireworks. Boom! A second firework followed, and then a third. In just a few seconds, the sky over the capital had become a sea of dazzling fireworks, attracting the attention of countless people. Amidst the earth-shattering explosion of fireworks, the sound of firecrackers could be heard. It wasn't just in one or two places, but all over the capital. King of foreign lands. King of foreign lands. As Wang Chong sat in his palanquin, his ears were filled with the deafening cheers of the people. In the last 100 years, the only person in the Tang dynasty who can receive such love and respect from the people is the young marquis. As the commoners lined the streets to welcome Wang Chong, the silver-robed eunuch at the front turned to look at the palanquin on which Wang Chong was riding, a look of envy on his face. The golden guards escorting Wang Chong also had respectful looks on their faces. The achievements that Wang Chong had established in the West were precisely what all men and soldiers dreamed of. In a flash, everyone's backs became even straighter. Wang Chong sat motionless in his palanquin, sensing everything. As he listened to the tide of cheers, Wang Chong mentally gave a long sigh. The people of the capital still knew nothing, and were completely unaware of the impending danger. But this was precisely why they were so adorable. Wasn't this the reason why Wang Chong had fought with all his might, and had sent generation after generation of generals to the front lines, and shed their blood for this very reason? Amidst the deafening cheers of the common people, Wang Chong's sedan chair passed through the streets, and finally entered the imperial palace. Rumble! As the two massive golden gates of the palace slammed shut, all sound was cut off. It was like he had gone from one world to another. Chapter 1252. What's going on? Wang Chong's brow creased as he came back to his senses and looked ahead. Marquis, there's someone blocking the way. The silver-robed eunuch leading the way said in a trembling voice. Buzz! Wang Chong's expression flickered as he raised his head. A moment later, Wang Chong sensed a powerful aura 50 to 60 paces in front of him, blocking his path. Wang Chong had originally believed that this was one of the commanders of the imperial army patrolling the palace, But it now appeared that this was not the case at all. But this was not what Wang Chong was concerned about. The imperial palace was a sacred land, not a place to be trifled with. For this person to dare to block him in a place like this, especially when he was about to enter the palace to meet the divine emperor, was simply audacious. No ordinary person would dare to do such a thing. King of foreign lands, will you not come out to meet me? A dignified and authoritative voice suddenly sounded from outside. It carried the air of a superior, and in that instant, Wang Chong could clearly feel the breathing of the chamberlains of imperial insignia in the surroundings, including the eunuch leading them. As though mice meeting a cat, a deep sense of fear appeared in their eyes. Whoosh! Without the slightest hesitation, Wang Chong raised a hand, parted the curtain, and walked out of the palanquin. Raising his head, he saw a figure standing in the distance, dressed in a four-clawed robe embroidered with clouds, his entire body exuding boundless majesty. Wang Chong had never seen this person before, but based on the resemblance between this person and the holy emperors, Wang Chong was able to quickly identify him. The first prince. Wang Chong couldn't help but widen his eyes at the sight of this figure. He had only been back in the capital for a day, and yet he was meeting the first prince in this manner. The first prince's calm and unruffled appearance clearly indicated that he had expected Wang Chong to pass through this alley, and had been waiting for him. King of foreign lands, it truly isn't easy to meet you. The eldest prince's gaze was like lightning, and he strode forward with a majestic gait. The moment Wang Chong appeared, he strode forward. It was also at this moment that Wang Chong's gaze darted around. He suddenly realized that within a radius of several hundred steps, all the imperial guards, and imperial guards had all disappeared in an instant. At this moment, the surroundings were deathly silent. The atmosphere suddenly became incomparably tense. Around the palanquin, the silk-robed eunuch and the accompanying chamberlain of imperial insignia all had pale faces. Their heads hung low as they trembled in fear, as though they were dead men. In the depths of the palace, it was taboo for a prince to meet the ministers of the court, not to mention that Wang Chong was not an ordinary minister. If this scene were to spread out, it would definitely have a great impact. It was even possible that they would be silenced. More importantly, the first prince was the eldest son of the first wife, the future crown prince, and the legitimate successor of the Tang dynasty. If there were no accidents, he would be the future emperor of the Tang dynasty. One could imagine the consequences of offending the first prince in the depths of the palace. Relax. Given the first prince's breadth of mind, I'm confident that he won't make things difficult for you. Wang Chong's eyes flashed as he walked forward. Whether it was a blessing or a curse, he could not avoid it. Ever since his reincarnation, Wang Chong had been intentionally or unintentionally avoiding the first prince, and even his big uncle had been influenced by him, slowly distancing himself from the first prince. But even after avoiding for so long, he could no longer avoid the first prince. Wang Chong could avoid the first prince, but he could not prevent the first prince from seeking him out. Moreover, Wang Chong was rather curious to know what the first prince was up to. Paying respects to your highness, Wang Chong walked over, stopped 3 or 4 steps away from the first prince, and bowed in a manner that was neither servile nor overbearing. Haha, the king of foreign lands is truly benevolent. As long as they don't speak carelessly, why would I make things difficult for these servants? The first prince indifferently said as he gazed at Wang Chong. This was the first prince's first time examining Wang Chong. Although he had heard many legends about Wang Chong, and his aides had shown him drawings of Wang Chong, the first prince couldn't help but sigh when he saw the real person. In the War of the Southwest, he had led more than 1,000 clan experts to the southwest, ultimately turning the tide and killing hundreds of thousands of soldiers of the Mengshi, Yusang army. And soon after, he had campaigned north and south, waging 2 large-scale wars, and annihilating the 1 million elite cavalry of the various worlds. All of this could only be described as a miracle. The so-called war god was nothing more than this. But who could have imagined that the one who had accomplished all these feats was a youth of 17 or 18? What a pity! If I had known that the youngest son of the Wang clan was so talented, I would have used Wang Zhen from the very beginning to pull the Wang clan over. The first prince mentally wrung his hands. If he had had his assistance, all these achievements would have gone to him, and no one would have been able to compete with him. While the first prince was observing Wang Chong was also observing the first prince. After all, he was a descendant of the Holy Emperor, and the first prince and the Holy Emperor shared some resemblance. Moreover, as the eldest prince of the Tang dynasty, the first prince had long ago begun to manage the affairs of the court. His body was brimming with dignity, and his every action exuded boundless authority. Just from his bearing, demeanor, and every word, one could see a part of the bearing of the Holy Emperor. Alas, as Wang Chong gazed at the first prince, he inwardly sighed. Others might not know, but Wang Chong was well aware that the first prince could never sit on the throne of the Holy Emperor. It was not because of fifth Prince Li Heng, but because his personality was simply not suitable. Wang Chong, you are a talent. This king's greatest mistake was that I didn't personally try to rope you in. I have seen your talent in the art of war, and it is truly the #1 in the world. Not even Wang Zhongxi can compare to you. With your assistance, this king might have already ascended to the throne of the 9-5. Thus, this king has come this time to make up for this mistake, to give you a chance, and also to give this king a chance. Wang Chong, how about you come and assist this king? The first prince's voice resounded through the palace alleys, causing the brocade-robed eunuchs and the other eunuchs to tremble in fear. The words 9-5 in particular instantly caused their faces to pale, but no one dared to say anything, only lowering their heads even lower. The War of the Princes was a taboo matter on the part of the first prince trying to win over the king of foreign lands. If this matter was not handled properly, everyone present would be silenced. And if even a sliver of this matter was leaked, it would cause a massive storm in the imperial court. Everyone trembled in fear, not daring to say a single word. It was so quiet that one could hear a pin drop. After what seemed like both a moment and like countless eons, Wang Chong's voice finally resounded through the palace. I didn't think that your highness would think so highly of me, but I am afraid that your highness will be disappointed. Wang Chong is only an ordinary general who has only made some achievements on the battlefield. As for the matter that your highness speaks of, that is something that only the Holy Emperor can decide, not something that a general like Wang Chong can influence. As Wang Chong spoke, he bowed in a manner that was neither servile nor overbearing. Impudent! Wang Chong, are you planning to refuse his highness? Suddenly, a stern voice rang out. Before the first prince could say anything, one of the first prince's guards behind him could not help but berate him. Impudent! Zhou Xing, why haven't you withdrawn yet? Who do you think the king of foreign lands is to be so rude? The first prince waved his hand and rebuked, but there was no hint of rebuke on his face. Wang Chong remained unmoved by this sight. Although Wang Chong had not encountered many of the methods these princes used to win over the hearts of the people, he was well aware of them. Wang Chong, are you sure you don't want to reconsider? This king has personally come to see you to express my sincerity. When Duke Jiao pacified the rebellion in the War of the Princes, he performed a meritorious deed of ascending to the throne. Even now, when one thinks about it, one still feels envious. Wang Chong, if you can work with me, we can create an even greater golden age, expand our territory together, push the Tang dynasty to unprecedented heights, and continue the old story of Duke Jiao and the Holy Emperor. Wouldn't that be a beautiful tale? The first prince said, his expression impassioned. Even Wang Chong was slightly moved by the first prince's impassioned voice, but Wang Chong quickly regained his composure. Your Highness, you have misunderstood. A soldier's duty is to obey orders, and Wang Chong is a soldier of the Tang dynasty. If your Highness ascends to the throne of the Holy Emperor, Wang Chong will naturally obey your Highness's decree and place the interests of the Tang dynasty above all else. Wang Chong's expression was indifferent, not the slightest change in it. The first prince imperceptibly creased his brow as he stared at Wang Chong. Wang Chong's answer was confident, but it was not the answer he wanted. Wang Chong, this king doesn't like being rejected, but it seems like you're going to refuse the last chance this king is giving you. Wang Chong's eyes widened, but he quickly regained his composure. Your Highness, ha ha ha. But this time, before Wang Chong could finish speaking, the first prince waved his sleeve and interrupted Wang Chong. Wang Chong, this king understands your intentions. I only hope that you will not regret it. The first prince gave Wang Chong a deep glance, then turned and left. His final glance seemed to contain a deeper meaning. Wang Chong, this king knows that you are riding on the crest of success, but the moon still waxes and wanes, let alone a person. You really shouldn't have helped old Five. Several zhang away, the first prince suddenly stopped. With a cold snort, he vanished into the distance. Buzz! Wang Chong had originally been calm, but when he heard the first prince's final words, his entire face instantly paled. Old Five. In the entire imperial palace, the only person the first prince could call Old Five was fifth Prince Li Heng. Wang Chong had originally believed that few people knew that he was secretly helping fifth Prince Li Heng, but it now appeared that this was not the case. I didn't think that he would know everything like the back of his hand. Chapter 1253. The imperial palace was a treacherous place. There were no walls that could keep the wind out, no secrets that would last forever. This was why the War of the Princes had always been so dangerous and feared. His relationship with fifth Prince Li Heng would one day be exposed, but it was happening much faster than Wang Chong had expected. It seems like the fifth prince has already placed many spies at his side. Wang Chong raised his head, a glimmer of light in his eyes. A tall tree attracted the wind, and fifth Prince Li Heng was no longer the same as he was in the past. He had gathered many advisors to his side, but the more people he recruited, the more people there would be mixed in. This was unavoidable. As these thoughts flew through his mind, Wang Chong quickly returned to normal. Let's go. With a wave of his sleeve, Wang Chong quickly returned to the palanquin and sat down. Raise the palanquin. The silver-robed eunuch and the surrounding golden guards breathed a deep sigh of relief. The collapse of negotiations between Wang Chong and the first prince was undoubtedly a good thing for them. After all, nothing had happened. Otherwise, if a prince of the Tang dynasty and the king of foreign lands, favored by the Holy Emperor, were colluding with each other, a calamity would descend upon them. The palanquin quickly began to move forward. In the surroundings, the vanished imperial forest suddenly reappeared. Everything returned to normal, as if nothing had happened. But within the palanquin, Wang Chong's heart was heavy. Has the situation in the palace already gotten this serious? To Wang Chong, the first prince's appearance was just a minor interlude. What truly worried him was the message behind this matter. It was a taboo for a prince to privately meet with an important minister. If not for the fact that the palace was in such chaos, the first prince would never have dared to do such a thing. Everything depends on the Holy Emperor. Wang Chong took a deep breath and quickly calmed down. In the eye of the storm in the empire, the most important thing would always be the Holy Emperor's attitude. Moreover, after such a long time, what Wang Chong wanted to know the most now was how the Holy Emperor's condition was. The palanquin moved forward quickly, passing through layers of palace walls, and getting closer to the center of power of the entire Tang dynasty. A moment later, they stopped in front of a white jade stairway that had thousands of steps. Parting the curtain of the sedan, Wang Chong walked out. The security in front of him was extremely tight. Countless chamberlains of imperial insignia donned in golden battle armor stretched from the bottom of the imperial stairway all the way to the very top. Right in front of the golden palace, there were countless experts standing there. Waves of essence energy soared into the sky, causing people to feel intimidated at the sight of them. Pa! At this moment, the sound of a whip came from far away in front of the great hall. Declare! The young Marquis, Wang Chong, requests an audience. His firm voice lingered in the air, echoing throughout the hall. Wang Chong tidied up his clothes and quickly began to ascend the white jade stairway. This was not the first time Wang Chong had set foot on this stairway, but it felt very different this time. There were no observing ministers, no ceremonial music. All of this indicated that this audience was completely different from the past. After ascending the stairway, Wang Chong quickly arrived in front of the palace. "Young Marquis, go. His Majesty is waiting for you in the hall." The chief eunuch holding the whip softly said, his expression respectful to Wang Chong. There was no one in the entire Tang dynasty who did not know of the new war god of the Tang dynasty, Wang Chong. Even these eunuchs deep in the palace had heard of his name. "Many thanks, Gong Gong." Wang Chong bowed and brushed past the chief eunuch, quickly making his way toward the palace. Bzz. Wang Chong stopped in front of the pitch-black palace gate. As he gazed at the dazzling palace, Wang Chong's mind was in turmoil. When he had first arrived, his mind had been filled with countless questions and resentment. But as he stood in front of this massive palace, all these distracting thoughts were swept away, and Wang Chong's mind suddenly became tranquil. "Wang Chong, come in." Right at this moment, a mellow, warm, and smooth voice suddenly sounded out from within the hall. Wang Chong immediately recognized the voice of eunuch Gao Lisher. Wang Chong quickly stepped over the threshold and into the palace. Boom! The instant he took a step forward, it was as if he had entered another world from one world. All sounds disappeared, and at the same time, that familiar aura once again swept over him. This was not the first time Wang Chong had entered this palace to have an audience with the Holy Emperor. The last time he had stood before the Holy Emperor, Wang Chong had felt like he was as insignificant as an ant. But after half a year, Wang Chong felt completely different. He was already close to the subtle realm, able to peer into that unfathomable realm. Even Kateba had died at his hand, and the lofty great generals in the eyes of ordinary martial artists were no longer intimidating in his eyes. But the moment he stepped into the palace, Wang Chong had never imagined that he would still feel a deep sense of reverence from the depths of his heart. He felt like a child standing before a giant, humble and insignificant. If one said that Wang Chong was a giant standing on the summit of a mountain, then that incomparably noble figure in the hall was a god standing high in the clouds, looking down on the world. The higher his cultivation level, the more Wang Chong understood just how terrifying and powerful the Holy Emperor was. Divine martial realm. This thought flitted through Wang Chong's mind. The subtle realm was already an unfathomable existence. Wang Chong had experienced this power before and knew just how enormous it was. And the divine martial realm was above the subtle realm. The Holy Emperor of the past had been infinitely close to the divine martial realm, and Wang Chong found it very difficult to imagine just how terrifyingly powerful the Holy Emperor had become. "Your humble servant kowtows to the Holy Emperor. Long live the Holy Emperor! Long live the Holy Emperor!" Wang Chong lifted his robe, quickly lowered his head and bowed respectfully. It was so quiet in the palace that one could hear a pin drop. Only the majestic aura was left, surging in the palace like a tide. After a long time, an extremely majestic voice, like that of a god, finally sounded from the depths of the palace. "Rise!" At that moment, the entire palace was trembling slightly. "Thank you, Your Majesty." Wang Chong bowed and stood up. The palace was about 60 to 70 meters away, and the rules in the palace were strict. Without orders, no one was allowed to go forward. Wang Chong stood there and looked up slightly. The palace was empty, completely different from the heavily guarded appearance outside. Apart from the most noble figure in the world at the top of the palace, and eunuch Gao, who was dressed in embroidered clothes, there was no one else. There was not even a palace maid holding a circular fan, and a mighty palace general with a giant axe standing at the back. Wang Chong couldn't help but have a strange feeling about this. But soon, Wang Chong's eyes were focused on the most noble and legendary emperor in the world at the top of the palace. Whether it was in the past or now, the figure in the palace would always be the most respected and admired existence in Wang Chong's heart. It was not because of his supreme status and power, but because he led the empire from chaos to order, reaching an unprecedented stage of prosperity. This was the real Holy Emperor. Buzz! As Wang Chong's mind was in turmoil, the Holy Emperor, dressed in his dragon robes, was seated on his massive throne. His right hand was resting on the dragon armrest, his forefinger lightly moving. In the next moment, Gao Lisher understood Chun Shi's intentions, and his figure flashed as he opened an imperial edict and walked over. Wang Chong, hear the decree. Subject Wang Chong, hear the decree. Wang Chong quickly lowered his head and bowed. By the will of the heavens, the emperor declares. Young Marquis Wang Chong has protected the country and is young and promising. In the Battle of Talas and the Battle of Khorasan, he has rendered heroic service and raised the prestige of my Tang dynasty. Thus, with the approval of the Holy Emperor, the 6 bureaus have agreed to confer upon young Marquis Wang Chong the title of King of Foreign Lands of the Tang dynasty. He will enjoy the title of king, and his status will be the same as that of a member of the imperial family. In addition, the Bureau of Rights and the Bureau of Personnel will draft an official announcement to the world. Gao Lishir put away the imperial decree and gazed at Wang Chong, a gratified look on his face. He had almost single-handedly watched this youth grow up. During the regional commander's incident, when Wang Chong had been impeached by the Hu and imprisoned in the imperial prison, Gao Lishir had personally led a group of people to visit him and deliver pills to him. From that moment on, Gao Lishir knew that the sage emperor regarded this youth highly and doted on him. In truth, Wang Chong had not let down the holy emperor's favor. In just a little more than half a year, he had used a series of astonishing feats to prove that the holy emperor had not misjudged him. Wang Chong, come up and receive the decree. The hall was quiet, and to everyone's surprise, Wang Chong remained motionless, as if someone had used the petrification art on him. If it had only been a few moments, Gao Lishir would have believed that Wang Chong had not heard him clearly. But Wang Chong stood there with no intention of coming up. Young Marquis, Gao Lishir's expression changed slightly, and his voice suddenly rose a notch. Your Majesty, this subject has a memorial to make. At this moment, Wang Chong bowed to the hall, his loud voice echoing through the hall. Wang Chong, you dare. At the sight of this, Gao Lishir's expression changed drastically. The Holy Emperor had already announced Wang Chong's reward, but Wang Chong dared not to come forward and receive the decree, and he even had a memorial to make. He was clearly using this opportunity to blackmail the Holy Emperor. This was a major crime. This subject Wang Chong has a memorial to His Majesty. To Gao Lishir's surprise, Wang Chong acted like he hadn't heard, speaking even louder than before. Gao Lishir's face completely paled. It was obvious that Wang Chong had steeled his heart, and no longer cared about the consequences. Speak. The Holy Emperor's dignified voice came from the hall, aloof and emotionless. It was as if he had long ago predicted that Wang Chong would ask this question. Arabia is a country of tigers and wolves, an eternal calamity to the Tang dynasty. The threat it poses is even greater than that of the barbarians bordering the Tang dynasty. And Khorasan is extremely important to resisting Arabia. This subject earnestly requests that Your Majesty rescind this decree. As Wang Chong spoke, he respectfully kneeled once more, remaining motionless on the floor of the hall. More than a year of planning, more than half a year of painstaking effort, an enormous investment of resources, and the sacrifice of tens of thousands of soldiers had finally won the Battle of Khorasan. No matter what, Wang Chong could not let these sacrifices be in vain, and he certainly could not allow the Arabs to rise again and wreak havoc on the Central Plains. The Tang dynasty was withdrawing, the alliance at Khorasan had collapsed, and the entire army was withdrawing. In the entire world, only the Holy Emperor could change all this. Chapter 1254. Buzz. As soon as Wang Chong's words fell, it was as if a boulder had been dropped into a lake, stirring up huge waves. In the great hall, Gao Lishir's expression had become extremely ugly. In the entire Tang dynasty, nothing was more turbulent than the conflict between militarists and Confucians. Now the Confucians had the upper hand in the court. Gao Lishir had been most worried that Wang Chong would bring up this matter during this audience, but it had still happened. I understand. The Holy Emperor's voice came again from the great hall, without the slightest ripple of emotion. Your Majesty, the military is a matter of great importance to the country. It is the power of life and death, the principle of survival, and it cannot be ignored. The military is an important barrier for the Tang dynasty to defend against the surrounding barbarians. Once it is reduced, it will cause great chaos. I hope that your majesty will consider it clearly, Wang Chong said again. The great hall was quiet. Gao Lisher could no longer hold it in. Wang Chong, what are you doing? A ruler's orders are like a mountain, and a ruler cannot go back on his words. Since His Majesty has made a decision, it cannot be changed. Are you going against your superiors and blackmailing the Holy Emperor? Gao Lisher's expression was livid, and he was furious. In the entire Tang dynasty, from top to bottom, for decades, no one had ever dared to speak to the Holy Emperor in this way. And no one had dared to blackmail the Holy Emperor like Wang Chong. This was treason. Just this alone was enough for him to be sentenced to death. This was a great crime of disrespect. Your Majesty, your humble servant would not dare, Wang Chong said loudly, but there was no hint of retreat in his voice. The person before him was no ordinary ruler. His open-mindedness and wisdom were admired by the people of the world. His ambition and strategy were admired by the people of the world. His governance and martial arts were praised by the people of the world. More importantly, he had single-handedly created the current prosperous and powerful Tang dynasty. Back then, the Holy Emperor was able to make his grandfather do his best to assist him. Wang Chong believed that the current Holy Emperor was still the same king who cherished the world, who was wise and mighty, and who was also worthy of him following. Wang Chong, hurry up and get up. Gao Lisher was already trembling with anger because of Wang Chong. He had thought highly of Wang Chong just now, thinking that he was the most talented young man he had ever seen, and that he did not disappoint the Holy Emperor's love for him. He did not expect that in such a short time, he would become so muddle-headed. Wasn't this going against his career prospects? Enough. At this moment, a calm voice came from the side. The Holy Emperor waved his hand slightly and stopped Gao Lisher. Your Majesty. Gao Lisher quickly fell silent and lowered his head. Wang Chong, I have my own plans for this matter. The Holy Emperor looked down at Wang Chong and indifferently said. His voice naturally exuded an unquestionable tone. But Your Majesty, Wang Chong lowered his head and still wanted to argue, but Gao Lisher could no longer watch. Wang Chong, you're impudent. He had always had a favorable impression of Wang Chong, but no matter what reason Wang Chong had, no matter how talented he was, or how much he had contributed to the empire, the Holy Emperor had clearly expressed his intentions. For Wang Chong to still dare to contradict him was simply audacious and deserved death. King of foreign lands, receive the decree. At this moment, the Holy Emperor's voice resounded in Wang Chong's ear, dignified, decisive, and unquestionable. These words ended the conversation and cut off all of Wang Chong's thoughts. Wang Chong stood there in a daze, his face as pale as a sheet of paper. On his way here, Wang Chong had thought of all sorts of possibilities. No matter what method he had to use, he had to find a way to change the Holy Emperor's mind. But he hadn't imagined that the Holy Emperor's attitude would be even more resolute than he had imagined. With just a few words, he had utterly destroyed all of Wang Chong's hopes. Wang Chong's face alternated between green and white, and he was speechless for a long time. Suddenly, at this moment, a clear and melodious sound of a bell resounded in the hall. Wang Chong had never heard such a sound before. It was sharp and thin, like strands of string. Moreover, although it sounded like a bell, it was also completely different. More importantly, this was the imperial palace's holy land, where the Holy Emperor resided. Wang Chong could not think of anyone who would dare to disturb the Holy Emperor's hearing in this place. But what surprised Wang Chong the most was the reaction of the Holy Emperor and Gao Lisher in the hall. When the bell rang, Wang Chong could clearly see that Gao Lisher's face had paled, and he seemed rather flustered. And the Holy Emperor's aura had also begun to ripple. At this moment, Wang Chong could clearly sense that the Holy Emperor's aura had become somewhat disordered. However, in an instant, that aura disappeared without a trace, as if it had been suppressed by something. Your Majesty! Wang Chong's heart chilled, and his face paled as he thought of something. King of foreign lands, let's end things here for today. The Holy Emperor is also rather tired. If you have any questions, we can talk about them next time. Gao Lisher suddenly said. Although he tried his best to remain calm, His voice still unconsciously revealed a sense of urgency and anxiousness. He was no longer as calm as he was before. The mood in the imperial court suddenly became rather strange, completely different from before. Wang Chong froze, countless thoughts flitting through his mind. Wang Chong still wanted to say something, but the Holy Emperor lightly waved his finger, indicating that he should leave. King of foreign lands, let's go. Zhejiang will send you off. At the same time, Gao Lishur, dressed in embroidered robes, walked out of the hall. Wang Chong mentally gave a long sigh. No matter how unwilling he was, he could only leave the hall. If he continued, he would be disobeying his superior. Not only would he be of no help, he would only end up making things worse. This lowly subject receives the decree. Wang Chong gave a deep bow. King of foreign lands, Zhejiang can understand your feelings, but the present is different from the past. You are now the king of foreign lands of the Tang dynasty, the first true king of the Tang dynasty, with a different surname. Whether in the open or in the shadows, many people will be watching you. I hope that the king of foreign lands will be careful with his words and actions, and protect himself. As for His Majesty has his own reasons for doing this. In the future, the king of foreign lands will understand. After leaving the hall, Gao Lishur stopped and gave Wang Chong a long sigh. There seemed to be more to his words. Wang Chong wanted to ask more, but Gao Lishur had already turned and stepped into the hall behind him. After a few moments of silence, Wang Chong composed himself and quickly descended the imperial stairway of white jade. Not long after Wang Chong left, Gao Lishur returned to the Holy Emperor's side. Your Majesty, this matter has been a major blow to him. Is there really no need to tell him? Gao Lishur asked hesitantly in the hall. There's no need. The Holy Emperor waved his hand, his expression indifferent. My body will find it very difficult to last for too long. Even if this matter is corrected, it will happen again in the future. It is better to treat it as a test for him, and see what level he can reach in the end. This old servant understands. Gao Lishur lowered his head and bowed. But Your Majesty's attitude has changed so much this time. In the imperial court, the ministers are probably not used to it. In the hall, the Holy Emperor leaned against his dragon throne, his eyes half closed as he calmly waved his hand. Severe illnesses require fierce medicine, and troubled times require severe punishment. We have already spent 20 years guarding against them. If we do not reveal a flaw and give them a chance, how could we possibly draw them out? The Holy Emperor spoke in words that only the two of them could understand. The word "them" caused Gao Lishur to deeply sigh, a hint of worry in his eyes. This old servant understands. Cough, cough. At this moment, he heard a series of coughs, and these light coughs immediately caused Gao Lishur to pale. Your Majesty. Gao Lishur quickly strode forward and supported the Holy Emperor. At the same time, a vigorous and heavy pure yang energy surged from Gao Lishur's body into the Holy Emperor's. The atmosphere in the hall was chaotic. It took a long time for everything to calm down. Outside the palace, in a carriage, Wang Chong sat motionless, his mind in turmoil. During this meeting with the Holy Emperor, Wang Chong did not get the answer he wanted, even at the very last moment. The state of the sage emperor, the strange chime, and Gao Lishur's words as he left, all of this seemed to be abnormal. Wang Chong had thought that after meeting the Holy Emperor, the confusion and doubts in his heart would lessen. But now, the doubts that shrouded his heart had deepened. Wait, we're not going back to the residence. Take me to the south of the city, Wang Chong suddenly said. The next moment, the carriage immediately headed toward the south of the city. On Green Dragon Street in the south of the city, there was a huge mansion that was dignified and solemn. 2 stone lions stood erect, and above it hung a black gold plaque. Zhou Residence. The 2 large words were written in flamboyant calligraphy. This was the residence of the Minister of Glory, Zhou Wenshan of the Tang dynasty. Wang Chong raised his head and looked at the residence, his mind in turmoil. The Tang dynasty had 27 ministers and 81 ministers. Zhou Wenshan was one of the leaders of the 27 ministers, as well as one of the most important civil officials of the King of Song and the Wang family. When that incident happened, Zhou Wenshan had turned against the Tang dynasty at the last minute. He was one of the important civil officials who had suddenly turned against the Tang dynasty. Even the king of Song had not expected his betrayal. Since he had not obtained the answer he wanted from the Holy Emperor, Wang Chong had almost immediately thought of Zhou Wenxin. If he could understand why this pillar of support at the king of Song's side had suddenly changed his attitude, he might be able to understand the entire matter. I'll have to trouble you to send a message that the king of foreign lands, Wang Chong, has come to pay his respects. Standing at the gate of the Zhou residence, Wang Chong made a gesture, upon which Zhang Ke swiftly stepped forward and handed over a visiting card. A guard at the gate of the Zhou residence had already stepped forward and taken the visiting card. After glancing at it, he immediately grimaced. "Your Highness, please wait a moment. This one will go and send the message." After saying that, the guard captain of the Zhou mansion put away the visiting card and quickly entered the mansion. Wang Chong stood in front of the gate of the Zhou residence, his eyes slowly closed. The Zhou residence had been calm at the start, but a few moments later, it was thrown into chaos, and one could even hear a woman's voice. "My lord." Zhang Ke turned his head, a hint of worry in his eyes as he gazed at Wang Chong. As a disciple of the Eagle and an important intelligence officer at Wang Chong's side, he was well aware of what had happened. Zhou Wenxin had turned against the Tang dynasty at the last minute and had been refusing visitors for many days. During the morning court session, he had claimed that he was ill. Chapter 1256. Relax. He'll definitely come out to meet us. Wang Chong seemed to know what Zhang Ke was thinking, and he spoke without raising his head. The disturbance in the Zhou residence quickly calmed, and the estate became quiet once more. Time slowly passed, and just when Zhang Ke believed that Wang Chong had made an error in judgment, he heard a flurry of footsteps. Through the open gate of the Zhou residence, Zhang Ke saw a middle-aged scholar wearing a plain hat and dressed in plain clothes. His face was pale as he walked out, accompanied by a group of servants and servants. As he walked, his head was slightly lowered, his eyes fixed on the ground. His entire body seemed to be absent-minded and restless. When he was still 30 or 40 paces from the gate, a servant seemed to call out to him. Only then did the middle-aged scholar return to his senses, tidied his clothes, and swiftly went to greet Wang Chong. "This Zhou has failed to welcome the king of foreign lands. I hope that your highness will forgive me." Zhou Wenxin raised his sleeves and clasped his hands in greeting. "Lord Zhou is too polite. Will you not invite me in to sit?" Wang Chong indifferently said. "Oh." Zhou Wenxin seemed to wake up from a dream, and hurriedly stepped to the side to lead the way. "Your highness, please, please." Only after saying please 3 times did Zhou Wenxin lead Wang Chong into the residence. Upon entering the hall, everything appeared very strange. The maids were strange, their faces pale, and the servants at the door had strange and unnatural expressions. Even Zhou Wenxin felt like he was sitting on pins and needles. "Is Lord Zhou still not prepared to speak?" Wang Chong took up the teacup on the table, lifted the lid, and lightly wiped away the foam floating on its surface. Hearing this, the maidservant's face paled, and Zhou Wenxin's face alternated between green and white. "HAA." With a long sigh, Zhou Wenxin stood up like a prisoner about to be executed. After a night of torment, he had finally chosen to calmly face his impending fate. "Your Highness, Zhou Wenxin has nothing to say about this matter. It is Zhou Wenxin who has wronged your Highness. No matter how your Highness punishes me, this Zhou will calmly face it and have no complaints." After Zhou Wenxin said this, he bowed down respectfully, bending his body at a 90-degree angle. Wang Chong was the highest commander of the Tang dynasty in Khorasan, and the acting Qixi Protector General. Zhou Wenxin's defection had resulted in Wang Chong being stripped of his military authority and his position as acting Qixi Protector General. The months of hard work at Talas had been lost in a single night. One could say that Wang Chong was the direct victim of this matter. Zhou Wenxin could refuse to meet with the king of Song or Wang Zhen, but he could never avoid Wang Chong. As a civil official, he had to uphold Confucian etiquette, but in this matter, he was lacking in virtue. This was one of the reasons Wang Chong was so confident that he would meet with him. Lord Zhou, you're truly a good person. Zhang Ke looked at Zhou Wenxin with a cold snort, his voice brimming with enmity and resentment. In Qixi, it was precisely because of these people that Wang Chong had been so enraged that he had vomited blood and fainted. Zhang Ke still remembered this matter even now. He had no good impression of these people. Moreover, Zhou Wenxin and the other officials who had defected had committed treacherous acts that Zhang Ke and the others despised the most. Enough! Wang Chong waved his hand to stop Zhang Quebec. Lord Zhou. So this is your explanation? Wang Chong put down his teacup and calmly said, Your Highness, this Zhou also has his own difficulties. This Zhou and the King of Song have known each other for many years. And this one has always admired the King and Lord Wang General. When your Highness galloped across the foreign battlefield, vanquishing foreign foes and raising the prestige of our country, this Zhou applauded your Highness. If possible, please believe that this Zhou would never have done such a thing. Nonsense. Didn't you still do it? Is this your explanation? Do you know how many of our brothers have been sacrificed to deal with Arabia? Do you know how many of our brothers have shed their blood and died on the foreign battlefield, just because you said that you had no other choice? Zhang Ke angrily retorted. At any other time, he would never have been so agitated, but this time was different. Half a year of hard work had been for naught, and Zhou Wenxin's expression was so calm that Zhang Ke found it impossible to accept this. Zhang Ke. Wang Chong glanced at Zhang Ke and stopped him, and then he turned to Zhou Wenxin. So, just who ordered my lord, and who made Lord Zhou change his mind? Can you not say anything? Your Highness, forgive me. It's not that this Zhou doesn't want to say it, but that this Zhou cannot. Zhang Ke became even more enraged at these words, and he glared at Zhou Wenxin. But Wang Chong seemed to understand, and he placed his hands on the armrests of his chair. I understand. Zhang Ke, let's go. With these words, Wang Chong waved his sleeve and strode out, ignoring Zhou Wenxin. Let alone Zhang Ke. Even Zhou Wenxin was left speechless for a long time. Today was the day of Wang Chong's conferment, and almost everyone in the capital knew that Wang Chong had appeared at the Zhou residence. Zhou Wenxin had originally believed that Wang Chong had come in a threatening manner to denounce him, but he had only said a few words before leaving. Even Zhou Wenxin was dumbfounded. Wait a moment. As Wang Chong stepped over the threshold, Zhou Wenxin couldn't help but call out. Does Lord Zhou have anything else to say? Wang Chong stopped, his back to the hall as he indifferently said, Your Highness, this matter truly was this Zhou's mistake, and I failed the trust of the King of Song and Lord Wang. But the phoenix carving the sparrow also has its origins. If your Highness and the King of Song have any complaints, feel free to direct them at this Zhou. Let go of this Zhou's family. Be at ease. We haven't fallen to such a level. With these words, Wang Chong stepped through the door and vanished. Behind him, Zhou Wenxin breathed a sigh of relief and respectfully bowed. Zhou Wenxin thanks your Highness. After leaving the Zhou clan residence, Zhang Ke was still rather indignant. My lord, are we just going to let him go? Everyone says that scholars have their own strength of character. This kind of person is simply infuriating. Let him go. Everyone has their own difficulties. We can't completely reject him just because he made a single mistake, Wang Chong calmly said. Wang Chong calmly said, far less agitated than Zhang Quebec, but this bastard didn't say a single word. He caused my lord to be stripped of his position, stripped of his military authority, and caused all our brother's efforts to go up in smoke. If we just let him go, wouldn't that be letting him off too easily? Wouldn't we have come here for nothing? Zhang Ke indignantly said. Who says he didn't say anything? Wang Chong countered. Ah! Zhang Ke was dumbfounded by these words. He had accompanied Zhou Wenxin and Wang Chong the entire time they had met, and Zhou Wenxin had been evading and evading, even listing out his difficulties and excuses. He hadn't said a single word about anything else. Wang Chong had said that he had said a few things. How could that be possible? Zhang Ke carefully thought back, but he couldn't remember Zhou Wenxin saying anything useful. Zhang Ke, sometimes even if you don't say it, you just say it. There are some things that don't necessarily need to be said. And didn't he say it before he left? The phoenix polishes the sparrow, and there is a connection. After saying this, Wang Chong waved his sleeve and stepped onto the carriage, leaving behind Zhang Ke, who stood there in a daze. The phoenix polishes the sparrow. And there is a connection. What does that mean? Zhang Ke muttered to himself, unable to understand. Although he was in charge of intelligence, when it came to illusions, he was worlds apart from Wang Chong. There's no need to think about it. Let's go back to the residence. Wang Chong's voice came from the carriage. Zhang Ke's heart chilled, and he immediately stepped onto the carriage. With a crack of his whip, 2 horses immediately pulled the carriage back to the Wang family residence. As the carriage rumbled through the streets, Wang Chong sat motionless in the carriage, lost in thought. The phoenix polishes the sparrow was an illusion from the Western Han dynasty. At the time, the shaman Gu had appeared in the palace, and the implications were widespread. The 3 departments had held a joint trial, and the officials in charge of the investigation had traced the shaman Gu's wooden and cloth puppets to a palace maid. That palace maid had suffered all kinds of torture, and before she died, she had said, "The phoenix polishes the sparrow, but it was against my will. So it's because of this." This thought flashed through Wang Chong's mind. The phoenix polishes the sparrow because he was forced, but how many people in the imperial court could force Zhou Wenxin to do so? In that moment, Wang Chong vaguely thought of something. Now it's time for me to act. No matter who you are, I will definitely drag you out. Wang Chong quietly said to himself. Time slowly passed, and Wang Chong returned to the residence. By nightfall, the eagle had flown over the wall and into the Wang family residence. Zhang Ke quickly came knocking on Wang Chong's door, a letter in hand. Your Highness, it's bad. Master has just sent word that Zhou Wenxin has submitted his resignation to the imperial court, saying that he is unwell and unable to handle court affairs. He has requested to resign and return home, and the imperial court has already approved it. Master just sent someone to investigate, and found that the Zhou residence has been emptied. Zhang Ke got down on one knee and sternly reported, I understand. Wang Chong sat cross-legged on his bed, cultivating his expression unperturbed. Your Highness, now is the best time to ask Zhou Wenxin about what happened that day. Why don't we send someone to capture him now? There's no need. Wang Chong waved his hand, not even opening his eyes. His words left Zhang Ke flabbergasted. But my lord, Zhang Ke was completely dumbfounded, unable to comprehend Wang Chong's thoughts. There's no need to worry about him. Let him do as he pleases. Wang Chong indifferently said, ending the conversation with a single sentence. Zhang Ke was filled with unwillingness and confusion, but Wang Chong had already made his decision, so he could only withdraw. Once Zhang Ke left, Wang Chong finally opened his eyes. They shone with a brilliant light, but they quickly calmed down, and the room regained its silence. Chapter 1257. The night quickly passed, and on the morning of the next day, Wang Chong took a bath and changed his clothes. After washing his face and rinsing his mouth, the maids of the residence helped him put on the crimson imperial robe that symbolized his status as king of foreign lands. He straightened the violet gold crown on his head, one hand resting on the imperial sword at his waist, while the other gripped the dragon token that symbolized his status as king of foreign lands. Then, under the watchful eyes of his mother, the maids and the servants, he leisurely seated himself on a golden-red palanquin. Young master is so impressive. Young master is so handsome. With the crimson imperial robe and the violet gold crown, even Panin and Song Yu would feel ashamed of their inferiority before young master. The pretty maids blushed as they gazed at the palanquin outside the gate. When they had been helping Wang Chong change into the imperial robe, their hearts had been thumping in their chests. At some point, Wang Chong had gone from that hedonistic scion to a hero of the Tang dynasty. Moreover, the temperament that he had tempered on the battlefield caused his every move to emit a soul-stirring charm, causing the hearts of all the young girls to be moved. Wang Chong's mother, Lady Zhao, stood at the gate, her eyes slightly red, gratified and excited. Today was Wang Chong's first time participating in the morning court session of the Tang dynasty, and nothing could make Lady Zhao more excited. All the hard work he had put in had paid off at this moment. From this moment on, The most worthless child of the Wang clan had grown up. He could now act like the Wang clan's old master and display his talents in the royal court with a different identity. Raise the palanquin. Outside the gate of the Wang clan, a resounding voice rang out, and 8 burly guards rose to their feet, lifting the golden-red palanquin toward the imperial palace. As Wang Chong set off, firecrackers exploded behind him. Wang Chong sat in the 8-bearer palanquin, escorted by 2 rows of guards as he swiftly made his way to the imperial city. After passing through many alleys, he appeared at the palace gate. By the time Wang Chong arrived, there were already many palanquins parked in front of the palace gates. The morning court assembly of the Great Tang would begin from the 5th watch period, and some of the officials would even wake up at the 4th watch period. Wang Chong could be considered one of the latecomers. There were many empty palanquins at the city gate. According to the rules of the Tang dynasty, the palanquins of civil and military officials could only be sent to the gates of the imperial city. But when Wang Chong arrived, he saw a sedan bearing the emblem of the Wang clan. Big Uncle Wang Zhen was already waiting for him there. Chonger, this is your first time participating in the morning court session as an advisor-in-waiting. In a while, remember to watch, listen, and learn more during the morning court session. Before you speak, think carefully before you speak and think thrice before you speak. In addition, the civil and military officials of the imperial court have their own shifts, and their positions cannot be randomly assigned. Although you are the king of foreign lands conferred the title of king of foreign lands by the imperial court, the imperial court values your status as a participant in politics, so when assigning you a shift, it still follows your status as an advisor-in-waiting. But in the end, you are still a king of the imperial court, the king of foreign lands conferred by His Majesty. Other than a different shift, there are no other restrictions in the imperial court. Wang Zhen waited for Wang Chong to step forward, and as they entered the imperial palace, he earnestly informed him of the taboos of the imperial court. The imperial court is different from the battlefield. There are many rules and regulations, and many restrictions. One cannot make a decision based on one's status alone. In addition, a tall tree attracts the wind, and the current imperial court is much more complicated than before. When you were on the border, many people couldn't do anything to you. But when it comes to matters of the imperial court, especially the memorials sent in from various places, and the urgent discussions that need to be resolved, if you don't speak with substance, you will be mocked by the officials and used to attack you. King Qi and the others might even make an issue out of it to discredit you. Chonger understands, Wang Chong deferentially said. Although Wang Chong was a great general and hero revered by countless people on the battlefield, the imperial court was a completely foreign place, and martial strength could not solve any problems. When the Tang dynasty's war god Wang Zhongxi was at his peak, he left Longxi's Big Dipper city, resigned from all his posts, and became the crown prince's junior guardian, precisely because he was framed by the imperial court. A place where the smoke and flames of war could not be seen was far more dangerous than a place where the smoke and flames of war could be seen. Wang Chong had understood this a long time ago. However, not even his big uncle knew that his thinking was completely different from his big uncle's. He had his own plans for this morning court session. In the imperial palace, the golden guards opened the way in the morning. From the palace gate, the 2 sides of the alleys were guarded by the golden guards, leading to the place where the imperial court was to be held. Even those unfamiliar with the imperial court would be able to follow these rows of golden guards through the maze-like imperial palace to find the place where the court was to be held. Along the way, Wang Chong listened to his big uncle's instructions as he made his way deeper into the imperial palace. Along the way, all the golden guards he encountered would look at Wang Chong with reverence. Whether it was the Imperial Guard, the Golden Guard, or the Protectorate Army on the border, as long as Wang Chong was a soldier of the Tang dynasty, there was no one who did not revere Wang Chong. But the civil officials he encountered along the way were completely different. Although Wang Chong did not dare to say anything because of his status, he could not help but point fingers at him. Officials protecting each other, 3 titles a year. At such a young age, he's already the king of foreign lands. Does he still care about the rules of the imperial court? He's just a brat who's still wet behind his ears. And he hasn't even grown a beard yet. It's fine if he's placed on the border, as youths are full of vigor and courage, but what's with him participating in the imperial court? Are we old officials not a match for a youngster? She'll lower your voice. He's the king of foreign lands, and he's currently in the limelight. Don't make trouble. One clan has 4 ministers and generals. What king of foreign lands? He's clearly the Azura king who kills people like flies. How despicable. The officials whispered to each other from a distance, but given Wang Chong's cultivation level, even if they did, their words would still resound like thunder in his ears. Chong'er, there's no need to pay attention to them. They're all old officials who have sat on the bench for decades. You've been promoted so quickly, so it's no wonder they have complaints. The familiar voice of Wang Chong's big uncle, Wang Zhen, came from the side. There were all sorts of officials in the imperial court. There were those who had been promoted due to their outstanding achievements, those from noble clans, those who had been recommended for their filial piety, and those who had passed the imperial examinations. There was no such thing as one or the other. There were only the people of the King of Song and King Qi's faction. In truth, when I entered the imperial court, I was the same. Wang Zhen continued. Wang Chong couldn't help but smile at these words. The matter was naturally not as simple as his big uncle made it out to be, but Wang Chong had already weathered many storms, so he didn't care about such slander. Big uncle, let's go. With a wave of his sleeve, Wang Chong and his big uncle walked in. Foul brat. Remember that there are no relatives in the imperial court. Once you enter, you must call me Lord Wang. Wang Zhen said, making a rare joke about Wang Chong. Yes, Lord Wang. Wang Chong couldn't help but smile. The hall of Taihe was solemn and dignified. By the time Wang Chong entered, the imperial court was already packed with civil and military officials. Wang Chong, dressed in a crimson imperial robe, calmly walked in, instantly attracting the attention of the people in the hall. In an instant, the ministers who had been discussing in low voices immediately stopped, and the entire hall suddenly became much quieter. Countless officials began to size up this youthful king of foreign lands, who was bursting with success. Although Wang Chong had made a name for himself in the War of the Southwest, many of the most powerful officials of the imperial court had never even seen him. To these people, only by squeezing into this dazzling hall of Taihe would they have the right to see him. As they gazed at Wang Chong's youthful figure, they had all sorts of expressions: envy, jealousy, admiration, hostility, and kindness. But in the face of so many of the most illustrious and powerful officials of the Tang dynasty, in the face of so many complicated gazes, Wang Chong remained calm and unperturbed. While the officials were sizing him up, he was also sizing up the officials in the hall. A few moments later, Wang Chong's eyes paused as he spotted a familiar figure. The King of Song. Beneath a cinnabar coiling dragon pillar, the King of Song, dressed in his imperial robe, stood motionless. Although he had been avoiding Wang Chong this entire time, and even when Wang Chong had gone to visit the King of Song, he had not been able to see him. But no matter how much the King of Song tried to avoid him, he could not avoid the morning court session. As if sensing Wang Chong's gaze, the King of Song turned his head and glanced at him. But after this glance, he immediately turned his head away, avoiding Wang Chong's gaze. But to Wang Chong, this one glance was enough. At that moment, Wang Chong sensed that the King of Song's mind was weighed down by many things, as if he had fallen into some massive puzzle. It seems like the old butler wasn't lying, Wang Chong mentally muttered to himself. There were times when words were not necessary to communicate. For Wang Chong, he had at least confirmed one thing. The King of Song was still the King of Song. He had not changed, but he had probably encountered a very difficult problem. Buzz! Just as he was pondering this, Wang Chong suddenly heard a cold snort. Almost at the same time, a gaze filled with malice turned toward him from another direction. Wang Chong turned his head and saw that in a place opposite the King of Song, there was another figure with a majestic aura, noble and dignified. His aura not one bit inferior to the King of Song's. But this person had a sinister aura that was not present on the King of Song's body. The ministers around this person stood, smiling coldly at Wang Chong, making no attempt to conceal the malice in his eyes. King Qi. A thought flashed through Wang Chong's mind. This was not the first time he had met King Qi. During the marquee conferral ceremony, Wang Chong had already met King Qi face to face. However, this was the first time they were actually standing so close, serving as ministers in the same palace. Wang Chong sneered fearless. He glared back at King Qi, showing no intention of backing down. Chapter 1258. Wang Chong did not bicker with King Qi. The present was different from the past. Wang Chong was flushed with success, like the sun at high noon. Moreover, as the first king of the Tang dynasty with a different surname, Wang Chong's status was not one bit lower than King Qi's, so there was no need for him to back down. The Holy Emperor had not yet begun the court session, so Wang Chong's gaze left King Qi and began to look elsewhere. His big uncle was correct. There truly were many new faces in the hall. Wang Chong had wandered through the capital for a period of time, and although he hadn't attended the morning court session, he had a basic understanding of the officials in the imperial court, their unique traits, and the way they spoke and did things. Moreover, he had been influenced by what he had seen and heard, and even though he had never entered the Hall of Supreme Harmony, he had a rough idea of who the people in the imperial court were. But there were many faces in the imperial court that Wang Chong could not find the corresponding mark in his mind. Moreover, these people stood in the ranks with their backs straight and their eyes looking forward. They did not move at all, as if they were made of wood. Even their movements and postures were exactly the same. It was obvious that they were from the same group, which was very strange. Moreover, the majority of them seemed to be around 30, a rather young age in the imperial court. These people had their eyes closed and were motionless, paying no attention to anyone else. In this situation, even if Wang Chong wanted to glean any information from them, he would find it very difficult to do so. Wang Chong's gaze rested on these people for a few moments before moving away. Suddenly, a gaze attracted Wang Chong's attention. Wang Chong was standing at the door to the hall, so he could clearly see that the King of Song was standing by the coiling dragon pillar, seemingly preoccupied and absent-minded. However, Wang Chong noticed that the King of Song's gaze was constantly drifting in a certain direction. Wang Chong followed his gaze and saw a tall and slender figure, who looked virtuous and respectable, staring motionlessly at the top of the hall. This person's aura did not appear to be particularly powerful. At the very least, in terms of martial arts, he was completely inferior to Wang Chong and Wang Chong. However, the power and prestige that he had accumulated over the years far surpassed that of the other ministers. Just by standing there, he was like a crane in a flock of chickens. Although he had his hands behind his back and was motionless, the ministers around him would occasionally glance at him with respect. Wang Chong immediately recognized it. Li Zhenu, the prime minister of the Tang dynasty, had been a virtuous prime minister in the eyes of the public for more than a decade. He had won the respect of the civil and military officials in the imperial court with his achievements over the past decade. But to Wang Chong, he was a traitor. Chonger, I'll go first. Your position is over there. Remember, this is your first court session. Talk less and observe more. At this moment, a voice rang in his ears, pulling Wang Chong back from his thoughts. Yes, Big Lord Wang. Wang Chong had originally wanted to call him Big Uncle, but he quickly changed his mind. He quickly took his place, and Wang Chong also stopped at the end of the court shift. Boom! The moment Wang Chong took his place, a wave of laughter came from the court, and all eyes turned to look at Wang Chong with derision. What a fine advisor-in-waiting. Those malicious gazes were full of derision. When Wang Chong had first arrived, he had truly intimidated a large group of people. But in the end, he was just an advisor-in-waiting. His shift was even lower than that of some minor officials. Wang Chong only faintly smiled. Standing at the back had its benefits, at least when it came to what he wanted to do. As for those gossipers, Wang Chong didn't even need to think to know that they were on King Qi's side. However, this kind of cold mockery and ridicule couldn't shake his state of mind at all. In fact, it didn't even cause a ripple. At this time, a white-haired eunuch in embroidered robes waved the whip in his hand high up in the hall. With the sound of the whip, the entire imperial court fell silent. All of the civil and military officials stood according to their ranks in an orderly manner, motionless. His Majesty has arrived. At the same time, the sound of chimes and musical instruments echoed in the air. Before the Holy Emperor even appeared, a majestic and powerful aura suddenly appeared out of nowhere, enveloping the entire hall like a tidal wave. The next moment, before the eyes of countless people, a golden figure appeared from the side hall, exuding the presence of a god from the heavens. Then, he sat down on the dragon throne at the very top of the hall. The moment that figure sat down, the entire hall began to tremble, as if the entire world itself was trembling. Even Wang Chong couldn't help but feel an immense pressure bearing down on him. With a solemn heart, he lowered his head slightly. "Long live His Majesty! Long live His Majesty!" Amidst the shouts, all of the ministers and officials lowered their heads and bowed. The atmosphere in the hall was solemn and respectful. "Ministers, if you have something to report, please raise the memorial. If not, the court is dismissed." To the right of the Holy Emperor, Eunuch Gao's face was ruddy, like a reincarnated Maitreya. "Your Majesty, this subject has something to report." As soon as Eunuch Gao finished speaking, a civil official strode forward, ceremonial tablet in hand. Thus began the day's court session. Wang Chong stood at the very back of the hall, silently observing everything. Whether it was in his previous life or in his mind, this was the first time he had truly participated in a court session to discuss state affairs. Being personally involved was completely different from hearing the gossip of the common folk. The dynasties of the Central Plains had been changing for thousands of years. Generation after generation, all of the ministers would discuss state affairs in the court, forming a perfect process. From the budget of the military and the allocation of funds to the various regions, to the minor cases of wrongful convictions, torrential rains and mudslides, everything was within the scope of discussion in the court. In such a large country, the number of files and memorials accumulated every day numbered in the hundreds and thousands. This was also why the morning court session of the Tang dynasty began at the 5th watch of the night. A long time ago, the Holy Emperor had delegated a considerable portion of his authority to others. Other than the most important proposals, the Holy Emperor would not easily express his position and participate. Last year there was a flood in Ji County. 60 to 70% of the people drowned. Later, the court sent people to deal with it, but they found that 9 out of 10 households in Ji County were poor. More than 90% of the people could not even guarantee 3 meals a day. Their household's finances were only a table, a bed, and a suitcase. Their savings were no more than a dozen copper coins. They were extremely poor. The court removed the local officials and sent in 6 or 7 young and promising officials who had performed meritorious deeds and were adept at governance. In the end, Ji County did not change at all. It remained extremely poor. Later, the court made a painful decision. The Ministry of Revenue allocated funds to Ji County, but not long ago, the court sent an imperial censor to investigate. Not only did Ji County not become rich, it became even poorer than before. I heard that advisor-in-waiting Wang is extremely intelligent. What are your thoughts on this? Halfway through the court session, a discordant voice suddenly rang out in the court. In an instant, the atmosphere in the court suddenly changed, becoming strange. In an instant, countless gazes focused on Wang Chong from all directions. Wang Chong had been listening from the side, but when he heard these words, he raised his head and looked in the direction of the voice. He saw a civil official, wearing a green official's robe, standing at the front of the ranks. He was currently looking back at him with a cold smile. Around him, the other civil officials were also looking at him with mocking expressions, as if they were waiting to watch a good show. Supervising physician Lin Chongxin, Wang Chong immediately recognized this person. He was a staunch follower of King Qi. This was his first day of attending the morning court session, and Lin Chongqing had used this kind of question to make things difficult for him. It was clear that he had ill intentions and wanted him to make a fool of himself. On the other side, King Qi was leaning against the cinnabar coiling dragon pillar, laughing coldly in his heart. He rarely participated in these kinds of matters, but he had more or less understood a little from Lin Chongqing and the others. The matter of Ji County had always been a headache for the Ministry of Personnel and the Ministry of Revenue. No matter what they did, it could not be resolved. And once the imperial court interfered, it became even worse. This was something that had never happened before. To tell the truth, this was a dead knot that could not be resolved. Using this question to make things difficult was to embarrass Wang Chong. Although Wang Chong's reputation as the king of foreign lands resounded through the world, the matters of the imperial court were completely different from the battles on the border. One did not need a saber to kill in the imperial court. Foul brat, I'd like to see how you answer. If you keep your mouth shut, I'll send people to spread the word that you're a good-for-nothing, who only knows how to kill, a brute, a demon. If your answer is wrong, I'll have everyone laugh at you. And then I'll repeat the story, saying that you don't know how to learn, that although you've rendered great service, you're still a profligate scion in your bones. If what you say is even the slightest bit useful and seems plausible, I'll have everyone add fuel to the fire and have them carry out your plan. If the problem of Ji County cannot be resolved, I'll say that you're an armchair strategist, babbling nonsense, hindering the affairs of the state, and that you're not suited to be an official of the imperial court. In any case, no matter what you do, I'll have you lose all standing and reputation. Prince Qi said nothing, but his eyes were brimming with pride. To deal with this brat, who was still wet behind the ears and had not even fully grown hair, he truly had thousands of methods. The imperial court was his territory, and it was up to him to decide how he wanted Wang Chong to die. Chong'er. On the other side, at the front of the class of civil officials, Wang Zhen was also looking back at Wang Chong with a worried expression. King Qi's attack had caught everyone by surprise, but not even Wang Zhen could do anything about it. In front of so many civil and military officials, he could not openly give Wang Chong pointers. The entire hall was so quiet that one could hear a pin drop. Even the Holy Emperor and eunuch Gao were looking at Wang Chong. Chapter 1259. It felt like only an instant had passed, but it also felt like countless centuries. Finally, when the atmosphere in the court had reached its most oppressive state, and just when everyone thought that Wang Chong was going to back down, everyone suddenly heard that young voice. The various officials have already explained the problem of Ji County very clearly. It is because of the periodic floods that the people there have become so poor. Therefore, in order to solve the problem there, we must first solve the floods. Wang Chong stood at the end of the line and slowly raised his head. His words stunned everyone who heard him. Ji County had been poor for a long time. When the officials of the imperial court first arrived there, they only thought about how to solve the poverty, but they did not think deeply about the source. As a result, Ji County became more and more destitute. But after countless debates in the court, everyone finally learned that the root cause of Ji County's poverty was the floods. This was Wang Chong's first time attending the court, but he was actually able to point out the root cause of the countless discussions over the years. If it were any one of them, they would not be able to do it. It could be seen that Wang Chong was truly talented, and no one could underestimate him. This kid is very powerful. He does have some ability. Lin Chongqing stood at the front of the line and looked at Wang Chong, who was dressed in a bright red robe. His eyes narrowed, and his heart was filled with awe. This revolt was to embarrass Wang Chong, to let him know that the internal affairs of the imperial court were not as simple as the battles at the borders. But Wang Chong's first words had hit the nail on the head, and Lin Chongqing could not help but feel a sense of threat. As for the imperial court sending 6 or 7 officials, they were unable to solve the problem. Not only did the situation in Ji County not resolve, it became even more serious. The reason is very simple. It is better to teach a man to fish than to teach him to fish. Lord Lin, Can I take a look at the dossier on Ji County? Wang Chong looked at Lin Chongxin. Lin Chongxin was stunned. From his standpoint, he naturally didn't wish to let Wang Chong see the dossier, but in front of so many civil and military officials, this was absolutely impossible. Bring the dossier to Lord Wang. Lin Chongxin made a gesture, and an official stepped forward and quickly handed over a thick stack of files. The Ministry of Personnel and the Ministry of Revenue had to prepare dossiers for the matters discussed in the imperial court in case of emergencies, and for other people to look at. This was all part of the routine. Wang Chong opened the dossier, found the volume of Ji County Annals, and quickly browsed through it. The entire imperial court was silent. No one dared to disturb them. If it was in the past, everyone would only laugh at him. After all, Wang Chong was only a general. But now, everyone had a serious expression on their faces. They no longer dared to look at Wang Chong like before. A few moments later, Wang Chong closed the dossier and handed it back to the official. It seems like my judgment was correct. Based on the county annals of Ji County, the frequent floods have caused the land of Ji County to become extremely barren and lose the ability to grow crops. To control the floods, one needs to build a dam, and this takes a long time, making it very difficult to control the floods. More importantly, the floods have made the common people apprehensive and not rashly plant crops there. Thus, in this lowly subject's view, Ji County needs to adapt to the local conditions and make changes. It is no longer suitable for agriculture and farming. Wang Chong indifferently said as he looked at the officials in the hall. Bang! Wang Chong's words sent the entire imperial court into an uproar. Absurd! Food is the most important thing to the people. If the common people don't grow crops, what will they rely on to eat? King of foreign lands, you speak nonsense. Your Majesty, this subject accuses advisor-in-waiting Wang Chong of harming the country and the people and making irresponsible remarks about state affairs. Your Majesty, please punish him. And here I was thinking that he would have some brilliant idea, but it was this. Laughable. Wang Chong's words were like stabbing a hornet's nest, causing the officials to become agitated and begin to criticize him. If not for the fact that Wang Chong had just been made king of foreign lands and had been some other advisor-in-waiting, the civil officials of the court would have long since cursed him out of the Taihe Palace. Haha, so he's just someone who plays to the gallery. I was just wondering how he could be so formidable. On the other side, King Qi sneered. He had been worried for nothing. But in the end, when it came to internal affairs, Wang Chong was just a good-for-nothing half-learned man. Chonga, it's over. Wang Chong's big uncle Wang Chong felt his heart sink. Despite his repeated warnings, in the end, Wang Chong had still fallen into the trap of these people. The civil officials of the court knew how to eat people. Just based on Wang Chong's words today, these people could use this as a pretext to wipe clean Wang Chong's reputation for meritorious service on the border, making Wang Chong the laughingstock of the world. Wang Chong had spent so much effort and risked his life to get here. But all his efforts had been wasted in a single night. At this moment, he was filled with self-reproach. Wang Chong held his hands behind his back, taking in the expressions and reactions of all the officials in the hall, and he only grinned. Rely on what? Of course it's the iron, copper, and silver mines. Just when the crowd was at its most furious, Wang Chong suddenly spoke, his words immediately suppressing all the angry voices in the hall. For a moment, the entire hall was silent. King of foreign lands, what do you mean by this? In the end, it was supervising physician Lin Chongxin who spoke, voicing the question on everyone's mind. His expression was solemn, and there was a questioning look in his eyes. It's very simple. Although Ji County is no longer suitable for the development of agriculture and farming, I happen to know that Ji County is rich in iron, copper, and silver mines. Wang Chong confidently said. What? Everyone was dumbfounded by Wang Chong's words. Even King Qi, standing by the coiling dragon pillar, was shocked speechless. Ji County had iron, copper, and silver mines. How could one of the poorest counties have so many precious minerals? How could this be? This was simply a fantasy. The imperial court had sent 6 or 7 officials there, but they had never heard of any mines there. Wang Chong's words left everyone dumbfounded. King of foreign lands, are you speaking the truth? A civil official suddenly stepped forward. It was remonstrating physician Han Xiaoyan, a solemn expression on his face. If what Wang Chong said was true, then not only could he fill the imperial court's treasury, he could also help an impoverished county rise above the rest. This was truly killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Of course, Wang Chong indifferently said. One of my subordinates happened to be passing by, so he learned of it. As for whether it's true or not, the imperial court can send people at top speed. It should be a matter of a few days before we know. None of the officials in the court believed Wang Chong's words. Ji County was not an important place. If there were iron, copper, and silver mines there, and Wang Chong knew of them without the knowledge of the common people, then all the good fortune of the world had been seized by Wang Chong's subordinates. Wang Chong, dressed in his crimson imperial robe, stood with his head held high, his expression confident and relaxed. Seeing the doubtful gazes of the crowd, Wang Chong only grinned and offered no explanation. When he was reading the county records of Ji County, he had especially examined the map of the area, and after carefully thinking about it, he recalled that Ji County was rich in iron, bronze, and silver mines. Because these mines were buried rather deep, not even the common people knew of them, and the area remained in a state of extreme poverty. But Wang Chong was different. He could use his memories to buy Wuxia steel from the Hydra mine, and guide his cousin Wang Liang to a deserted island to bring back meteoric iron. So he naturally could discover the mines beneath Ji County. Moreover, when the calamity arrived in the future, the earth would crack open, and all these mines would be exposed. The iron mines can be used for mining, smelting, forging, and weaponsmithing. These can recruit a large number of peasants and provide them with work. And the copper and silver mines can be used to forge coins and fill the treasury. At the same time, a portion can be transferred to Ji County to deal with the flood disaster. The flood disaster in Ji County took a long time to deal with and cannot be dealt with in a short period of time. This is also the reason for the failure of the previous officials. The common people have to eat every day and cannot wait for so long. But if the imperial court allocates funds, we can spend 2 to 3 years mobilizing everyone to build dams, divert the flood, and allow the land to recover on its own. When the dams are built and the flood disaster is completely dealt with, we can once again develop agriculture and farming. Sharpening the axe will not delay the work of cutting firewood. Wang Chong smiled at the end. Hearing Wang Chong's final words, the civil and military officials in the hall all had strange looks on their faces. Beneath the coiling dragon pillar, King Qi's face was as black as the bottom of a wok, extremely unsightly. He had not instructed Lin Chongxin to deal with Wang Chong so that he could show off. In his original plan, no matter how clever Wang Chong was, he would be able to think of a way to sabotage his plans. He would not be able to carry them out. But if Ji County had an iron mine, copper mine, or even silver mine, coupled with Wang Chong's plan, then even an idiot would know that someone was trying to sabotage his plans. Because just based on these, Wang Chong was already in an invincible position. He had completely lost this round. This bastard. King Qi clenched his fists and gritted his teeth. Although he hoped that this was fake, with Wang Chong's current status, he would not joke about such a thing. The risk was too great, and it would be too easy to expose him. And from the reactions of the officials, Lin Chongxin's attempt had also backfired. Not only had he failed to attack Wang Chong, but he had also increased Wang Chong's influence in the imperial court. Lord Wang, where are these mineral veins that you mentioned? We will immediately send people to investigate and excavate. Another civil official stepped forward and asked. Wang Chong did not hesitate, and quickly reported 3 locations. The places where the mines were buried had some special characteristics, and because they contained silver, copper, and iron, the surface of the mountain was different from other mountains, making it very easy to identify. Did you hear that? Record these places and immediately send them to the officials of G County. Follow the map and excavate on the spot. The civil official said. Yes, Lord. At the edge of the imperial court, a minor official in charge of passing on information quickly left the hall. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.